Good morning. The August 29th, 2023 board work session is now in order. Roll call, please, Paul.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Campbell? Here. Mr. Trent? Here. Ms. Jenkins?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started on the first topic, which is those policies that we had there, I just want to give everybody the update that I asked Rendell, because now we're getting into the staff, and he had mentioned that he had already been working on it, that some of these policies we should not be entertained, like we shouldn't be in the middle of giving recommendations to them, right? So what I did was I asked if we could have staff get ahead of us and start reviewing them so that the process could go a little bit faster. So he had said we were already working on that, so thank you, Dr. Rendell, for working there. The other thing that I was going to mention is Paul, do you have an update on our the policies that we already have in place? So we did the zeros, the 1000s, like where are we at with all of that?
The ones are on for today for your first review, so they'll be going through rulemaking following this. Then the 2s, 3s, and 5s, which we've done, are being reviewed by staff. We had a conversation yesterday. We're going to meet with at the cabinet level to try and set up who's doing what so they can get really moving on those.
Yeah, and I think to all of our staff, we really appreciate you going through this. Like, I know this is a big pain in the butt, but we're out of compliance for some of these, and I really appreciate the time that you guys are spending to it. I know you have a million other things going, so thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rendell, for keeping them on that. The other thing I wanted to do is everybody okay? So we have this work session scheduled, right? Then we have the 7,000s, then the 8,000 and the 9,000s. Are you guys okay for just meeting on every opposite Thursday through September to get it done?
Tuesday?
I'm sorry, Tuesday. Sorry.
Yes.
Does that make sense? We're all okay. I just want to make sure we're still on board.
Okay.
Yep.
So not the 5th, because that's the week we have our school board meeting on Thursday, right? Not next Tuesday.
Correct.
But the,
Right.
They pulled the calendar.
would it be the 12th,
It would be. Good question, Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
So I would
And
say it
the-
would be, yep,
the 26th?
the 12th and the 26th. So the 12th, we would try to get through the 7,000s. The 26th, we would try to get through the 8,000s.
I have the college fair that's at the north end of the county, is on the 26th at 9 a.m. So as long as.
Go in the afternoon, maybe?
Well, there's two different.
There's
time-
morning and evening, I think. for that one.
Yes. So I would just miss the morning session, I guess. But that's okay. If I need to be here, I'll be here.
And then the 3rd, that's also my husband's birthday, but, you know.
Okay. So,
Then our next board meeting is the 10th, so we could actually do the 3rd
yeah,
also.
I think if you guys are okay with doing the 12th, the 19th, and the 3rd,
The 19th is a board
I'm sorry,
meeting.
the 12th, the 26th, and it wouldn't be the 3rd, it would be the 10th.
It's the 3rd because the board meeting is on the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can slide it in
Because
there,
that
so do 2 in a
Thursday.
row. Okay. If you guys are okay with that, kind of from a 30,000-foot view?
Yes.
Do we need
Of
to
course, we
just
gotta check with Ms.
forget the
Jenkins.
26th and just do the 3rd
No,
since it's the
because we
week
need that
after?
extra, we need that extra.
Why are you not connected?
I don't want to miss an opportunity. If we've got a Tuesday open, we got to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine for those days. Like I said, the only time that I have is the college fair, but again, there's 2 sessions for that, so I could just attend.
Maybe we just have the college fair here.
No,
And then-
I don't think that they will appreciate you moving all that around, so, but that's okay.
We'll work it out, but as long as tentatively those dates we can work to, we can try to figure out schedules and stuff like that. We do have to check in with Ms. Jenkins to make sure that her schedule is accommodating, but I think that that's good. Okay, so everybody's okay with that from a 30,000-foot view? Thank you, Dr. Rendell, for working through those other components. Thank you, staff, for dealing with going through all of these board policies. So that brings us to the agenda. First topic is a review of board policies 1001 through 1470. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to do this. This is 149 pages,
Yep.
right? These are things that we've already gone through. Do you guys want me to go through each one, or do you guys want to just say, hey, we're okay, we've reviewed them, and now we're ready to take it to the next step?
I just made a list of the things I had a couple questions about, and it's not a huge amount, so whatever you think is most beneficial. I don't know, Ms. Campbell, did you do the same?
No, I had one, and then I figured out the answer for myself this morning, and I'm good, so.
Okay,
So you're
and
okay
I,
with that?
With the ones that are here, the only question I had was what about policy 1242? because that was one that we talked about, and it's not in this list, and it also had a Neola update this year, so I didn't see that. Do you know why? Is 1242 coming back to us at a different time?
Why is this so different? Hold on, sorry. Give me
Did you
one
have that
second. Yeah.
Jean, are you okay?
It's
You don't
not
get
on
any
our
of those?
1000s.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a question, really. So on page 38, and staff might be able to answer this, under section 5, we,
Hang on. Ms. Campbell, you had
Sorry.
1230,
Pa-
1242.
Paul's checking it.
Okay, so she's checking 1242.
12,
now-
what was the page number?
it was page number 38.
Okay.
And this is just a general question that I had. So we refer to things as job descriptions multiple times, and for some reason on this specific policy, we changed it to job specification.
Oh, I saw that.
And I was wondering what the reason is on why we didn't stay consistent with description versus specification. I think that, again, this isn't a major,
I think that Neola uses specification,
Maybe that's-
but I think job description, actually, Neola's not always right.
say that.
We found errors in
Yeah,
there
we
before.
have,
Like
yes.
even like spelling and grammatical errors in there before. It's been a while, but what do you think about that, Paul?
I'm fine with whatever you guys want to go with. We can make it consistent with job description if you want.
I
Yeah.
think it would be smart to keep it consistent.
because-
Because
if
it
you go-
says specification on the next line, so
But then in the evaluation of the superintendent, which is 1040 on page 72, it goes to.
Some of those
description.
job
So let's
descriptions, though,
just-
have different sections.
Yeah.
Like,
Good point.
the job description overall is called the job description, but there's specifications, and then there's requirements and essential functions and things, so that's why it
Right.
might be broken down into
So why don't you take a
specifications.
look at it for us, and
Right.
if it needs to be cleaned up, we'll do it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I feel like if we're about to, when we did our very recent search for a new superintendent, that was one of the things we looked at was specifically the job description.
Yeah.
And then we had the specifications and all of that. So I agree. I think we just need to go back to what we had before.
Okay.
Okay, and then the only other one I had, and I want clarification on this, really, from a public standpoint, but page 137, item number 2, under records and reports. This speaks to the fact of withholding certain information from a parent, and I would like someone to clarify, I guess, the reason why we would do that, and is that still legal in today's day and age where the laws have recently changed? Awkward silence.
That we're looking at it.
Right, just reading it.
I think there's some cases where DCF, it's type situations where, or investigations. Where-
That's exactly what the language is referring to, in case it's a possible abuse situation or anything like that.
So just to cover us, would it be okay to revise the policy to make sure that it's very clearly stated that in cases of DCF or abuse or things of that nature, that those would be the only circumstances that we would withhold that type of information? It's written so vaguely right now that if you just flip to this policy, you're like, wait a minute, we're gonna withhold information from a parent regarding services to support mental, physical, or emotional well-being of a parent's minor child. So like it's very alarming to me. So I think if I understand the need to withhold that information, especially when you're talking about maybe a child comes forward and says that they're being abused in the home, then obviously an investigation has to get launched and there's a process there. But I just think this policy should be written in a way that clearly says that that really is the only time that we withhold information in an effort to protect the child's well-being, right?
Yeah, Paul, do you
Yeah,
have any idea how we can wordsmith that?
yeah, I'll pull the statute, and if the board wants to add, like, in cases of concerns regarding, I think the language is abuse, abandonment, and neglect, we can withhold that, but I'll make it mirror the statute.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
Thank you.
Okay, you're good about that?
Yes, I'm good. Those are the only things I had in this section of going through all these policies.
Okay, and then mine was just on 1242. I don't know if Paul has a answer yet, but that was one that we had there potentially some obsolete language, and it also refers to, going back to our policy 1242, right? It also refers to school board policy 1220, which we don't have. So needs to be fixed either way. I'm not sure how that happened.
Sorry, I'm trying to track with you right now, and I'm not.
So there's a professional development policy 1242. And when we went through originally,
42.
I went and checked the minutes. I don't know if I still have them pulled up. But we talked about it. And it needs some updates. And it was also included in this 2023 package.
What page are you on in this group? Sorry, we're on
Not,
the.
not-
it's not,
it's not in
that,
the
that's the
packet.
whole
That's
point
what-
is, it didn't get
Yeah,
included.
Okay, that's why I'm
Right.
like, I don't.
Yeah, no,
I
no,
don't see
I
this
know,
in
I
there.
know. Well, I was going back and looking at my notes from the last time, making sure those changes were in there. And 1242, for some reason, didn't end up in this package. So we just need to make sure that it,
Okay.
look, because it has some, like I said, I think there might be some language that's obsolete as far as the, in the second paragraph. And then also it refers to policy 1220, which we don't have. So we need to, and then, like I said, this year there was some updates listed in the Neola updates. So we definitely want 1242 to come back to us. Outside of this package is fine, but we definitely want it to come back.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Good?
Yep.
Everybody good on 0 through 1470? 1001 through 1470?
I am.
Yep.
Okay with that? All right, the next topic is the review of board policy 0100 definitions. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
I did.
Okay.
Why did we strike the definition of relative? We have it in there and we took it out, and I'm not really sure. Is that because we're broadening the definition, or?
The, Neola didn't include it. The only thing I can think of is how we do our, if it might relate to how we do our absences, or leaves, but that one, Neola doesn't include the definition of relative.
Should it mirror what our? I think it should be included, right? I mean, to some degree, or?
Well, relatives all of those, even parent, are defined in statutes in multiple places, and they're never consistent. So
Okay.
Neola probably just pulled it because you should use whatever you're looking for. So if you're in the 39 chapter of statutes, you might get one definition of relative versus the 1001 section of the statutes, you're going to get another definition. So whatever statute you're applying,
Okay.
you have to use the definition that's in that chapter for application of relative.
Okay.
I'm wondering in our collective bargaining agreements, because we have had that conversation about what can be a paid leave versus not paid leave, as long as we didn't say in that, because this says, or whatever's defined in the contract, right? Did we put something in the contract that says whatever's defined in policy? Ryan's shaking his head no.
Yeah, we'll use one policy, and I believe it's close relative, one policy.
Okay.
But then we
just-
don't define what close
Right.
relatives are.
So, but if they're not relying on this policy, then it doesn't matter.
These definitions are designed to apply to all of our policies.
So do we need it?
So then we would need it.
If you guys want it in there, we can stick it back in there. I think it just got removed because Neola removed it at some point from their definitions.
I think if it references it in our contract, then we should have the definition of what it is somewhere.
And then do you want to go with what was there, or do you want to use, the question's going to become, what definition of relative do you want to use?
Parent, spouse, child, grandparents, grandchild, or dependent in the immediate household as defined. I like the definition that's there. I don't.
I'm trying to see what policies it might affect.
You want to make a motion to keep the definition that's there? What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think we need to have the definition there, and I think the one that's there is fine.
So you're saying to keep it there? Paul, you had are you pulling it up to take a look at it? Mr. Trent, you okay with keeping the definitions? Okay,
That's fine.
I'm okay too. That's four of us, Paul, if there's no legal holdback, you know what I mean? I think that we're okay.
Yeah, we can put it in there. And I can check statute and try and make sure it's
Or can
At
you just
least-
add a line in there that says or
at
as
least
defined?
somewhat consistent with statute.
Right.
There's a lot of policies that have the word relative in it,
Yeah,
so,
so, I mean, I'll work on it.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we're okay from there?
Sorry, I'm the
Did
pain
you
in
get the
butt this
direction you
morning.
needed, Mr. Gibbs?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one up is, the next topic is a review of Board Policy 0118, Philosophy of the Board. If you look at this, it's an update from
Yes.
Neola. I think we're in a good
Yeah,
place.
this is the one that we had to pull with the zeros, because we got the wrong one attached.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep,
The needs and desires, they're
Yeah.
both in there now.
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
and yeah, we're good? Anybody wish to make any changes on this?
Do not.
No?
Nope.
Ms. Campbell, okay.
Nope.
Moving on, the next topic is review of Board Policy 3232, Political Activities. I looked over that. It seems like it's pretty straightforward as far as mirroring the Neola template. Does anybody have any other issues that they would like to add to that?
Nope.
Nope.
Good
I was
there?
fine with this one.
Mr. Trent, we're good? Okay. Next topic is a review of Board Policy 3126, Direct Contact Communicable Diseases. Is everybody okay with that, or do you want to wish to speak to it?
Yes, so this would kind of go hand in hand with what I had brought up before about the, at the last board meeting on direction that was given out. So this was we're repealing the COVID, really. I mean, that's really what it is. We can call it
Oh, this is not the COVID policy.
direct communicable diseases, is it not?
Yeah, this has to do, you know what, it's interesting,
HIV
because when
and
I
stuff.
pulled it up, I'm like, why are we repealing this? This has to do with like HIV and other,
CDC,
this
published findings,
Yeah.
state health
predated, because the
departments,
last time, this is a Brevard policy from 2008.
Human bite emergencies, there's more than just HIV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
this-
sorry, this
Well-
is not the policy that I thought it was.
So they're getting rid of it? Are we okay with getting
Well-
rid of it, or do you want to keep it?
It's, hang on. So, yeah, I went back and looked in the minutes, and the minutes it said we wanted to rescind it. Didn't go back and watch the video. But it is also a Brevard policy.
Yeah, I
So does
think
that mean there's not a Neola one?
It may be a Neola one as well, but it may have been contained somewhere else. I can go back and watch and see what the discussion was.
Yeah, but if we were thinking that this was a COVID policy, we never actually had a COVID policy outside of the mask policy, I don't think. We didn't have anything. We had some procedures and some guidelines and stuff, but this predates COVID.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that, so as part of it, the board is also committed to assuring the confidential status of individuals who may have been diagnosed with a bloodborne communicable disease. I mean, all those things are still going to apply. So before we pull this and face a lot of backlash, potentially, we probably should
Well, I think
take another look.
staff should have already looked back to see if this was illegal or anything like that. And if we can, Paul, if you want to have staff look it over to make sure that some of these that we know are pertinent to our school system, we can make sure that it's somewhere else. And if not, bring it back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they noted on their form that there's no comparable Neola policy. So.
Okay.
With staff not giving a direction on this, though, they should,
Well, the direction of the board was to repeal.
right.
Right, we have to go back and watch the meeting to
I gotta
see
go
why
see
we
what the
said
discussion
to
was.
rescind it.
But just for a process perspective, when the board makes a decision to go and do something, sometimes staff come back and say, hey, here's why we had that and stuff like that. So I haven't seen anything come back from staff. So what I'm saying is that if we can pause, give an opportunity for them to look at it and bring it back.
Yeah.
that would
There's
be
a
the best
really
thing.
long procedure that's tied to this, so I think we need to look at this one before we repeal this one 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. Without remembering the conversation,
I
because I
don't
literally, I was
either.
going through this, was like, why are we repealing this?
I thought we were repealing the COVID policy, so that's the only one I really actively remember saying, hey, we need to get rid of this policy. So I need to go back and look at it, honestly, to watch what we were discussing at that time.
Just so everybody understands, we are, anything that we go ahead and bring forward, it still has to come before the board for 2 more meetings, so. if
Right.
there's- You know what I mean? So, Paul, if there's good direction on the back end, you can just bring it back. We're not
Can we
gonna
bring
rush.
this one back at the next workshop? Is that okay? Can we push it down the line? That will give us time to go back and,
Yeah, if rulemaking, it would come before you for public hearing next. So I should know by then whether we want to keep it. If the staff are saying, let's keep it, I can just pull it off rulemaking and it'd stay in existence.
okay.
But I'd say if there's standards that are required that we don't have spelled out in the same way in another policy,
Right.
we probably need to hang on to it. But if we do have it somewhere else, then we can repeal it because maybe it's redundant, which is
Yeah,
fine.
We can go back and watch the video too and see what the discussion was on
Yeah,
why
I
to
don't-
repeal it.
I don't remember having an in-depth discussion about this, but there's been a lot that's happened, so.
Okay, so we're all good with that direction?
So just to clarify, we're going to keep it in,
Yeah, it'll
In the
stay on,
queue.
it'll stay on rulemaking until we verify
okay,
why it was being rescinded and if
All right.
staff wants to keep it.
okay.
Okay, so the next one up is the political activities. The next topic is review of policy 3232, political activities. If you guys look at it, it deals,
3575.
3575.
Yeah.
35,
Candidates for
7.
public office.
Yeah, we did 32, whatever that one was.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Yeah, 3575 candidates for public office. This is the one that said that we had to notify the board and everybody else that if you're running for political office, all candidates for public office may take personal leave without pay for 30 days prior to the election. We had decided that this was not something that we wanted to move forward on, but
No, actually, Mr. Susan, we're repealing this one and the next one because 3232 has them all together.
Right.
So 3575 and 3580, we're doing one policy for political activities rather than two separate ones. And
sounds good. So everybody okay with 3575 being repealed? To add it to 3580? All right. Next topic of review is 3580, supporting the public candidates.
So this one in here says that we're rescinding this one as well.
right, because all that information is also in 3232.
Okay.
Give me just a second to get rid of all of these.
I know, pinging back and forth.
Just a second.
See, that's
Okay,
why we need
back
two
on to
computers.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I can see the benefit.
Okay, so we have now gone through all the first, now all we have to do is move on to the 6,000s, right?
Yep.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All right, let me just take a second here. Move
Can I just
this.
ask one question, just going back, and I know I'm circling back, I just want to make sure, with us having a policy on here that is in the status of rescinding and keeping it on there, that means it moves to public hearing next.
Right, it's going to stay in the process until that final meeting, it's a policy on the books, even if it's in the process of being rescinded.
Okay, and I'm just thinking because there could be some real public outrage over rescinding this policy, coming forward to speaking about it at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
we'll know before to get it pulled off the agenda.
Okay.
Which,
All right.
oh, you mean the?
I'm just concerned
communicable-
about that, yeah, I am,
communicable
so
disease,
that's
yeah.
why I'm like, is it beneficial to just push it down to the next workshop rather than, I don't know, okay, but if you're saying
Yeah,
that
we'll
okay.
check it, yeah.
All right,
Okay, so now we're on to 6,000 policies. So let me just get set up for this because we've got.
it's not a whole bunch, which,
what do we
Mrs.
have?
Campbell.
Yeah. Because Mr. Cheatham loves me. Thank you.
Okay.
See, I got my setup here.
All right, let me get all these set up here. So we have the Neola,
yeah, because we have the updated,
5,000s, yeah, I just gotta get all this, just give me just a second.
no worries, I'm doing the same thing.
6,000s here, those are the policies. This is the,
How many tabs can you open on your computer before it's like,
there's that. Neola. Okay,
Oh, man. Now I have to read my handwriting.
uh-oh.
3,000,
I think that word is detailed.
all right, so that's 1,000. Sorry, I had so many darn things opened up here. Okay, so there's that. Let me go back here to this. And we have Neola, 6,000. All right. This one here is. And this most recent.
She does have them attached, both of them,
I
to the
know.
agenda.
Just hang on, I got a process here to go by. Is that good? Is that good? All right. Here we go. All right, so now I have the Neola templates that should have been updated. I have our policies, and then I have the ones that just came down the pipe from July. So we have it all kind of here. So the first one that we have is uniform records and accounts.
Neola's policy is significantly different than ours.
Yep. Let's see here.
It lists the,
Yeah, they have a more recent update,
Yep.
and they're more detailed. We had to make a decision on the audits. And this one, we have the first option, because with an internal auditor or an independent CPA firm, so. And also, but we also don't have policy 6830, so we would need to make some adjustments, unless we're gonna add 6830. That's at the end. I don't know if we're gonna get to those today, but we have our audit policy is like is different numbers from there. That's gonna be when we get to the end of 6000s, but whatever we do for 6830, it needs to line up with the correct policy if we change ours.
When I looked at the 6100, the one thing I did like is the method of accounting had the non-dispersable fund balance, restriction of fund balance, committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, unassigned fund balance. You know what I mean inside there? We do that to a degree, but it's not in policy here. I think it would be nice to add that to policy. But I think I'm okay with this policy in the Neola template. But I want to hear from, you know what I mean? I want to say, okay, this looks good from a 30,000 foot view, but I would like to give it to Ms. Lisinski to make any kind of recommendations that she would add back, if that's okay.
yep.
It needs to be updated.
Yeah. So,
That's my
Ms.
bad.
Lisinski, I don't want to get ourselves to say, we want this, and then it go against some of the audit policies and stuff like that. So I think as we go through these, I think the board will say, hey, this looks good as a policy, but if you can come back with anything that says we can't do that because of this, you know what I mean? There's this. If you can give us that guidance, that would be tremendous for us. Is that okay? All right.
Is our inventory, and this is just a general question, I don't know, and maybe there's an answer that's easy, but the warehouse stock, the inventory that's done annually, is that published anywhere publicly? Yep.
I don't know that it's published anywhere that you can get it easily, but I'm sure it's
Public
attainable.
record, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious if that's something that's easily obtained from a voter standpoint, so.
There's a list QR code and everything over $1,000. All right. So if we're okay with sending 6100 uniform records and accounts to Ms. Lisinski, the way that it is currently under the Neola template, I think we're in a good place. Is that-
Using the internal auditor, not the Office
Yes.
of Auditor.
Yes, we don't want, we would rather
Well,
our
we would prefer
internal
our
auditors
internal
here. Okay. Next one up is 6105, authorization to use facsimile signatures.
Neola doesn't have an update since ours, and I think ours is pretty
Yeah,
good.
I have this one checked off as being good.
Yep, I'm okay with continuing with the current one that we have.
So leave current.
There's an update, 6105, from the board, from this one that's a little bit different. Do you see it? It has
6105, yeah.
6105. It was Neola updated it in 2013. It's got about 2 more statutory references, and on top of it, it has some of the other checklists.
Well, the checklists are things for us to choose from because of who we can, but when I'm saying, when I say I'm fine with it as it is who we have chosen from, who can sign, whose signature can be on those, fine. If you
That's-
want to send it back so we can get extra legal references,
No, what I'd like to do is just make sure that, yeah, we always want to add the legal references to it because that's part of the recommended policy. But what I'd like to do is give it back to Ms. Lisinski to make any recommendations that she would like to see inside there and bring it back to us. Does that make sense?
Yes, I like the option on here where we ask for a hand signature on any transaction amount over a certain dollar amount. I think that's good, just as a,
I don't think we have that.
we don't, that's what I'm saying. It's on the Neola template though, where you can select that.
The only thing about that is I'm not sure how much we're actually signing checks. I mean, we're
Miss
sending.
Cindy would probably know that
Yeah.
more so.
So, I mean, so I'd hate to add something in policy that says, where is that part where it says that?
It's
About-
towards the bottom of
you have to
Page 3.
hand sign a check over a certain amount when we're doing wires and things like that.
Or, I mean, even the idea of the multiple signatures being required for transactions over a
Transaction
certain dollar amount, I think that's a good safeguard too, just to make sure that there's a check and balance on. Miss Cindy, can you shed some light
turn
on
it
that
on.
for us? What's the biggest check you've ever signed?
towards
Let's
you.
ask that.
There you go.
Biggest check I've ever signed, my mortgage maybe.
Cindy's name is not on the list of people who can sign checks.
I think, Ms. Wright, that may cause some process issues because with the handwriting signature, we're trying to move away from all of the very, very manual things. But we
Right.
do have internal controls of, there's 3 different people that have to look at it from different departments, but I can give you more specifics on that.
Okay,
Yeah. In other words, would be taking us back to,
Yeah, we're trying to move forward, and I think that would
Right.
also, it would cause some issues with just trying to get our payments out and
okay.
and working with procurement with the vendors.
What about the multiple signatures for certain checks in like in excess of $50,000? Do we currently have that practice in place?
I will have to go back and ask if we do.
Okay,
Ms. Lisinski, I think what Ms. Wright is getting at is that we had some sort of check and balance, right?
Yeah.
So like the concern is, but I'm under the understanding that anything over the dollar amount, I think it's like 36,000 has to go out for bid. And anything under 50,000, like the superintendent has the opportunity to do. But we put in place the under $50,000 to have some sort of board recognition of those. I think there's some other things in place too, that if this is a big burden, I think that making sure that there's a check and balance coming through the board for those. I think anything over a certain amount is automatically going to come in a contract to the school board.
this is just the payment though. I
Right.
think
This is a
probably,
payment.
yeah, I
Right, we
think it
would
would
approve
probably
the
be good
contract.
to have a conversation with, if you'd like to have a conversation with RSM, because they're doing and no, actually, who's our
RSM.
RSM,
correct.
but who's our other one that does like the budget one? Carrick.
MSL.
Yeah, yeah. To have those conversations about, because they're checking, I mean, if we don't have those checks, what you're wanting is accountability and,
Right.
and checks and balances. But if we have those, it's industry standard in electronic formats. It's not the old.
Right, right.
The standard used to be
Write a
multiple
check, yeah.
people signing a check,
Yes.
but we're in the 21st century and we're not doing that way anymore. But it doesn't mean there aren't standard, the checks and balances. So it'd probably be good to have a conversation with the auditors. And I know Laura Manlove from RSM is always open to whatever phone, she will pick up the phone anytime that we need her, to just understand that from a current standpoint. What is industry standard for? What are those checks and balances? Because we know Cindy's got them.
Right, and the AG came recently and reviewed all our procedures. I just don't have it on the top of my head
It's
of
okay.
exactly how we do that, but I know that we're very vigilant in making sure that we are internal controls, and I'll get the process to you.
Okay, if you would. And then
Okay.
if we don't have something in place currently, excuse me, that calls for multiple signatures, and I mean, I understand it could be an electronic signature or approval, so to speak, on a deposit, that might be a good policy to put in place as just, again, another check and balance. And they've put it here in the Neola template, so that leads me to believe that this is probably something that a lot of school boards are using or doing just to make sure. Sounds like we're doing it already anyways.
We are.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm just, but not the blue ink. We're trying
Right.
to get away from the.
Right. So, I guess when you say, okay, signatures by hand, we'll X-nay that one. 'cause
Well, Neola's
no one's
update
signed
is
by
also 10 years old.
Yeah,
Think
I
about how
know.
much the world has
Yeah,
changed in the last 10
world has
years.
changed in 10 years. But just that multiple people are going through the approval process, because we approved the contract, that's right, so it's already gone through all the steps of procurement. But as far as the payment goes, I think it's probably a good
Absolutely, I
thing to
agree.
look at since we're
Concur.
doing that.
And I think, if I can verify that we had agreed that the superintendent's purchases will come on some sort of a board agenda item. And then also, I think we had discussion wrapped around contract renewals. So like, one of the things I was speaking to, maybe we have to put it on the board for more
That's the
discussion, is
procurement
that,
policy.
hang on, hang on. If we have that policy, then it's a check and balance, is what I'm saying. So we may not have to get checks that we have to go sign. So, but in procurement, I found out that the renewal of contracts, so say our pharmacy renewal, right? All of a sudden, that can be renewed without coming before the board. Insurance renewal. So after 3 years, those 1-in-1s that we have on the back end. So I think we had discussion wrapped around making that come before the board, but if we need to make it part of discussion, I'd like to do that. But I think we have checks and balances is what I'm saying, to make sure we capture all of those things. That's all. So when you're doing that, just put that into consideration. if you
And
can.
looking at the annual review, I think that's what we were talking about. That really gives us the ability to lay eyes on it. It just
Yeah.
helps from a board's perspective to know what's going on and to make sure that we're laying eyes on any kind of things that could potentially go sideways. I know that everyone does a great job until they don't. And so if we can check it and we can make sure that we're staying on top of it, that helps make sure that we hold our district accountable and
Okay.
being responsible.
All right. Are we good? 6105? Everybody okay?
Yes.
well.
Move. You okay, Mrs. Sinsky? You good? I didn't know. I was looking down. 6107. Sorry, we're gonna have to, give me a
So
second
our,
here.
their 6107
Hang on,
is
Miss
our
Campbell.
6107.
Miss
point-
Campbell, just hang on just a second, all right?
I'm
61,
not going to say anything
but I'm
essential.
introducing, I know, but I'm introducing the topic. Just hang on just a second. So if you guys look inside of our topic, it's 6107.01 electric funds transfers. If you look at the two that are on the original or the new Neola updates, there's a version 1 and a version 2, and then let me make sure that we don't have a 61. There we go. So if you look at 6107, right, version 1, authorized to accept and distribute electronic funds, and then the other one, let me see here, is,
We have version 1, but it
Yes,
needs
Miss-
some updating.
Ms. Campbell. Thank you. So anyways, if you look at version 2 that's up there, it's a very short one. It's not the one that we have. If you look at version 1, you can see it side by side, and you can see that it needs to be updated based upon ours, which was 2014. Neola has a 2020 template. So the current version 1 is new from 2020. It needed to be updated. If you guys can look through it, if you don't have any issues with it, then we can move it on to Ms. Lisinski and staff. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about it,
No,
Ms.
it
Campbell?
needs up to be updated.
Yep.
Yep.
We're good? Good? All right. So 6107 version 1 needs to be the one that we choose, Paul, and it is the 2020 Neola. You just sent staff. You good?
All right, yep.
Okay. Next one is 6110 grant funds. The one that's, we call it federal funds, they call it grant funds, same kind of thing. The one that we have inside of our book was updated in 2002. The one that's inside there now is a 2022 one and is very extensive.
Yes.
I think that this is one that we would like to give the staff to look over, to review, to see if they want to make any recommendations. Does anybody have anything? I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's like 4 more pages.
Yeah, it is.
So are you okay with that, Ms. Campbell, sending this one in?
Yeah, and actually, the next several policies, in, not all of them, but in the next several policies, there are a couple that also have to do with grants.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably need to take a look and see which ones we need. I don't know that we need all of them, because my question now beside the next 4 is, do we need, do we need? Because I don't know. But, yeah, this one definitely is more extensive than the one we have.
Right, because you have 6111, which is internal controls.
That one's not so much.
But the next one after that has to do
Yeah.
with grants.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so if we were okay with 6110 going to staff to make sure that the new template is okay, and then bringing that back, that's good for us. Paul, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay?
So just to clarify, when we
Yes, sir.
say, like this one, for example, just run it by staff. If we don't see any problems with it, it just stays in the queue and we keep moving,
That's it.
Right.
right?
Great.
Yeah.
If the
Okay.
template's good, then
Yep.
with staff, we'll
Just wanna make
put it
sure.
on, yeah.
Sorry, I'll do a better job of explaining
No.
that. All right, so the next one is, we don't have this policy, but it is in Neola, which is 6111 internal controls. It goes through about maintaining internal controls over federal awards, gives some good direction on, you know what I mean, and some suggestions on evaluation and monitoring and compliance with state statutes and stuff like that. if you guys,
So it kind of does have to do with grants. I take back
I
what I
know.
said before. This one also has to do with grants.
well, and it also, it kind of bleeds into some other stuff though, I think, but yeah, I mean, so if you guys are okay with sending this for staff to review, I'm okay with putting it in, but they may say, just like Ms. Campbell said, look, this might be something that's already covered in something else.
Right.
But I think that this is something that, you know, it looks like it would be appropriate. Are you guys okay?
And this one, like some of the other ones, because there's a lot in the 6,000s that we don't have.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to add something that we already have covered, but if it's something, and I imagine all these things, it's just because we don't have any policy doesn't mean we're not doing it. But if it would be helpful, especially to people on the outside looking in, that, you know, have a clear one place to look, to put it in policy for staff or from the outside, then let's add them in. But I was looking at 6,000, man, there's not very many. And then if you look at the Neola book, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
So,
Yes.
that's
One of
what
the-
I was thinking on some of these.
Yeah. One of the issues that we have is that many of our 6,000s were not, they're all from 2002, 2008, 2014. So there's probably going to run through a lot of these that have been created since then that we're probably needing to add to it. So I think that having Ms. Lisinski's staff look at each one of them to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, and if there's not, moving forward, because some of them have like statutory, like legal laws that are there, so we may have to have them added. So if you're okay with having that process with 6112 of sending to Ms. Lisinski for review, and if there's no objections, to bring it back to us, if you're okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. 6114 is the next one that is not in our policies, but it is a new Neola template. It's cost principles spending federal funds. Again, this is another one where I think if we have the, you know, it's pretty lengthy and it's got a considerable amount of federal statutes and laws and stuff attached to it. So I would like to make sure that we're within our scope. If we can have that sent to Ms. Lisinski
Yep.
and then have her review it for fidelity and then get back to us, that'd be fine. Are you okay with that, Ms. Campbell?
The next one's on federal funds as well.
Yeah, next one is 6116, time and effort reporting. Again, it's got some statutory or federal laws to it. I would like to, if it's okay with you guys, push it up to Ms. Lisinski for review, and if not, you getting this, Paul?
Yep.
Okay.
The good news is most of these things are already being done, so I know that's a little alarming when you're like, oh, we don't have this policy or that policy, but you guys are already doing these things just by nature of what has to be done when it comes to federal grants. So
Right.
this just helps from a outside perspective to say, hey, we got it in policy, we got it covered, we're doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the philosophy that I was told when I got here, and it's in statute, it's in law, and we follow these things. That doesn't necessarily need to be in a policy because it's already in the statute, but I'm fine with this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one's kind of wonky. So
Yeah.
6120 is
First of all, I want to
safety
know what school
deposit
district
box.
has a safety deposit box.
But the thing is that it's actually in
Ours says fund
our
balance.
policy, it's fund balance.
Right.
So it's like,
Which
so
is a
we're,
unique policy.
so we're talking about the safety deposit box, and this is talking about the fund balance. So Ms. Lisinski,
And Neola fund balance is 6235.
Right.
so Ms.
Yeah.
Lisinski, are
So,
you
yeah.
okay?
So firstly, we should probably decide, do we need a safety
Right.
deposit box
Hang on,
policy?
hang on,
or
hang
do
on,
we don't?
hang on just a
You know,
second.
I can talk too.
But I'm just trying to get through the process. Just hang on a second. Ms. Lisinski, it makes sense for us to move 6120 that is in our current policy to the one that Neola does. So we're going to rename it. Are you guys okay with that?
Or renumber it. is
Right,
what you're
renumber
saying.
it. I'm sorry, renumber it is the first round. Getting that taken care of.
As long as we don't currently have a 6235. I don't think we do, but let me just double check. Hang on.
Well, if we get there, we can look at it then. But if you're okay with renumbering it to that, now we can come back to 6120, which is safety deposit box. And this talks you guys to the, it's pretty simple, right? So Ms. Campbell, you had something to say? Ms. Campbell?
I don't think we need a safety deposit box.
Do we currently have safety deposit box at any of our schools? Is that something that's being used?
I don't think it's
Or
at
at the
a school,
bank.
Yeah, it's at a bank.
Out of the bank, sorry. Oh, sorry.
These are very quiet mics.
Where the armor car delivers the dollars, it's in one big deposit box. But probably not talking about the same thing
No.
here.
No.
No, it says out
And
of
I don't want
bank.
a policy saying that we need to have that.
No, we
I
don't need that, but when we, just in case I'm not around, when we get around, because we're moving kind of slower than we thought, when we get around to 6235, can we go ahead and talk about our 6120 before we get off of it?
Yeah, fund balance?
So
Yeah.
wait, Ms. Campbell, you're saying we want to talk about 6120 that's currently ours that we're
Our
going to change
6120.
because that's an area of concern.
Right.
What other ones do you have an area of concern over besides that, so I can make sure that we address them
Not huge
before?
concerns, and I mean, they're gonna come back to us, and I thought about typing this all up, and sending it to Paul, but it's too much.
So this is the only one, though, that you have a lot of concern over?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have there's nothing in here that gives me headaches.
I just wanted to make sure we got to them, that's
No,
all.
I appreciate it, and I'm gonna stay on the phone for at least another hour, so, when I have to go.
All right,
So
so then,
this one, our Brevard, so Brevard has a specific fund balance rule. The state rule is you have to have 3% designated it to contingency reserve, and if you ever get below 2%, because you have to use some of it, then you have to write up a plan to the state, how you're gonna get back up there and all that, right? Hillsborough's been dealing with that for the last couple of years.
we did it for
But Brevard
years.
has a specific 3.5%, just to kind of give us that extra cushion. So that's not going to be in any Neola policy. So if we move this to 6235, my suggestion would be that we maintain the language that is Brevard specific to make it 3.5% cushion. And then along with that, I just had a question. For several years now, Cindy, since I've been on the board, that reserve, that 3.5% reserve it's been the same amount. It's been like 19 million something or other. It hasn't really moved up, but shouldn't it change every year, or has it been adjusted? I'm trying to think of the budget presentation you guys just did, and sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah, we did adjust it because
Okay.
our revenue went up, so we had to
Right.
adjust it.
So this
For a
point, our
couple, I
3.5
think,
reserve,
2 million, I think we
so
increased
we're
it. Mm-hmm.
over 20 million for that. Okay, thank you.
All right. So, do we want to put anything in here about the fund balance for the medical? It has to be at 10%?
I think that would be a
It's kind of
different-
our own state requirement, is that anywhere?
I think that's
Because the state, because we have our fund balance at 3.5%, but do we?
Right, it
It's
has
required
to-
by state, I just didn't know
It's,
if,
yeah, it's required by law.
know we do it
It's
every year.
2 months
yeah,
worth of
60 days of run out.
payments, yes.
Yeah, it usually is about, yeah, so
It's about $12 million, a little more.
10%,
Well-
yeah. All right, so if that's not needed to be in here because we follow it and everything else, that's fine. I just saw fund balance and everything else. So here's what we have is there's some other changes to it to bring it up to fund to the same thing. I think I agree with Ms. Campbell to keep it at 3.5%.
Yes, I agree.
But I would like to give Ms. Lisinski the opportunity to look at 6235 and see if there's anything that is counterproductive to what we do normally. Does that make sense? So that would be good. Now, we can go back to 6120, safety deposit box. We already moved past that one. So everybody's okay with the fund balance one, so we can move on? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Ms. Campbell, you leave in 12 minutes, so we'll get moving. So 6140 is the next one on our Neola updates. And it's pretty much the same thing. It goes back to 2002. It has a couple more references, but besides that, I think it's okay. What I would like to do is just add the references that are there.
We actually have more.
We have more than they do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not needed, then we can,
If I recall, that's like the main school board.
Yeah, the
authority
Florida statute one.
statute.
Yeah.
So it's powers and duties of a school board, so it's not irrelevant.
Yeah.
unless
I
it's
think this
inside there.
this one's good.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it in there, but whatever.
Yeah, I said leave this one the way that it is. It hasn't been updated from Neola, and
Yep.
leave that statute on there.
You guys are okay?
Look,
So,
one we don't have to do anything on.
so what we're saying is leave ours the same way with the extra statutory laws referenced?
The
Okay?
next one's version 2, so we're not opting for that.
Yeah, so now, right, and now the next one is 6144, which is investments. Looks to me like,
We did an extensive
Yes.
revision of this 2 years ago.
but,
When it's stapled, I'm like, oh, I know this is a doozy, this policy.
so this one came up So the one that's inside of our policy that we printed out is Neola up in, we revised it in 2021. This Neola one was 2013, but not modified by. Oof. I think we should just send this one to staff and have staff take a look at
I
it.
think this one's current though, honestly, because their Neola version is 2021. Where are you seeing 2013 at? Sorry.
The Neola copyright.
So if
Oh,
you
at
look
the very bottom.
it says, but she updated it, modified it on the 23. I would literally, if staff's okay and Neola's, you know what I mean? This
I
is one
see.
that's got so many cross references and everything else. It's massive. It's a
Yeah.
lot bigger here than it is inside our policy, inside this Neola. So I would say if she could review this,
Are you
take a
sure?
look
Are
at
you
it.
looking, because our policy is actually more detailed.
That's what I was saying. Ours is more detailed than the Neola one that's up here. I would say that I'd like to keep the one that we have, as long as it contains the 6144 investments component. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think what would be good though is to understand why we chose to stay with the Neola 2011 template, even though this was revised in 2021. And Neola is looking, I mean, their suggested template to use is the 2013. So
Well,
probably good to know
I
that.
can tell you, one of the conversations we had, and I can't remember if we ended up in this policy, Paul, you were here at this
Yeah.
time. We had a conversation around, was it Russian investments?
It was just, yeah, it wasn't necessarily Russian. It was,
Oh, boy.
some of our banks had gotten fined by the federal government
Oh,
for investing in like drug cartels and had been fined for
Right.
fraud activities.
It was a
and
big
stuff.
deal.
So we built in a component that allowed for discretion in not investing in, even though that may have been the greatest return on investment.
Right. And we literally had to get an opinion from the Attorney General.
Yeah, we
on
got an
it, too.
intent, because the statute reads like we're supposed to maximize interest over any other, considerations. So
Right.
based on the plain language of the statute, I wasn't comfortable in saying we're going to forego the greatest return on that investment over other considerations, such as a bank may have been fined, even though it's the largest, most stable bank in the game.
So this was a debate that came out. I was also at
And
the
the
board of
AGO cleared.
directors for the FSBA, and it was pretty intense. And there was no, you know what I mean? There wasn't, like what Paul was saying was exactly true. I remember being in Tallahassee inside of the Howard Johnson's that was up there. It's now a different
But
thing.
that was a small part of the update. I think the other part of the update from 2 years ago was that our Neola hadn't updated in a while, and we needed to update it to how, we're doing the investments.
Which brings us to another conversation that I think you want to really get into. Go
I
ahead,
know,
Ms.
I'm like,
Wright.
this is gonna, I don't know if I want to get into it. I'm like, I feel like you're gonna weed into the waters on this one on certain companies that
Do business with.
we do business with. I think that, I brought this up before, and does that cross over into this? I don't know.
What I will tell you is, when we get into the policies that have the new statutory updates, it specifically says the Neola updates from this year are, no ideological preference to vendors. It specifically says in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 policy updates for this year is that you can't do that.
I will say this.
And it cuts both ways.
This opens up a really good opportunity for us to have that conversation around our investments, because you guys haven't had that as part of your education yet. So Ms. Lisinski, not the next board meeting, but I would like to kind of have a presentation on the investment sections of, all of our investments. They come up every board meeting we approve the next steps, but I think our new board members could probably do a good overview of those investments. If you can give a presentation on the September 19th, I would say, gives you enough time to prepare.
Well,
She's also doing
that'll
that,
give
yeah.
her 12 days from her biggest night of the year to
Right.
get a presentation.
Well, if you
ready.
need
So it might
longer,
give her a little more room.
if you need longer, that's fine. I was just saying,
Okay, Mr. John Ford came and presented this policy, I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, and it was pretty,
Yeah.
pretty good presentation, so I can reach out to him and see if he can
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, we had
Could
And
you
then-
send us the link for that video?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That
maybe
would be
that would
good,
answer
just
some of
to,
those
it might
questions.
answer a lot
Oh,
of my questions.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah.
the other thing I would do is there's a lot of our investments that I would like to do. If you could put me to the person in touch, then if we don't want to do a presentation and you want to just review it. Our investments are at different years, returns, all of that stuff. I'd like to try to take a look at that, that's all. I'll follow up with you on an email.
But
All
I do
right.
think that the video of that YouTube of that presentation would be helpful, because
It
it
would
was, and I'd like it too, if you could just send it
Feels
out.
like the
because it's-
debate was
I've slept
before
a few
that,
times
though.
since then, I would.
It feels like it was before that. It felt like that might have been the end of a long, because it feels like it was years ago that we were having that debate
The
over
last 2
the
years have felt
drugs.
like an eternity, Mr. Susan, that's why it feels like that.
But they're two separate things. Number one is a request to the link to the board workshop where Mr. Ford presented, this
Yep.
policy and the changes. But maybe a presentation about our current investments.
Yes.
Separate.
Yes.
And then when it's appropriate for
Yeah.
Ms. Lisinski and her staff,
Understood.
And
it
Mr.
might be, Ms. Lisinski, that you can just push out what you have, and then we could review it, and then that might be sufficient. But I think in the later date of actually going through it for the new board members, so they understand it, would be good.
And Mr. Ford actually drafted our current policy on this.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
So to clarify, for direction on 6144, are we moving forward with our current policy or?
I think so, but what I wrote down is to push for further review if you guys want to dig into it. Do you want to look at that, watch the review and?
I
watch
would
the
love
video?
to see the video of where we were, and I cross-reference it with the new legislation that just passed, I think is also important, because there might be some things in there that could get us in the weeds.
What I would like to do, Dr. Rendell, is just push this to the
Right,
next,
so
to
this
the
will
next
come out of the
review.
queue.
Yeah, I would take it out of the queue, let us review it. Ms. Campbell, are you okay with that, to review the past, give them the opportunity to review
Because
it?
that'll be a good, because he gave us a good education on what are the legal requirements are, state statute on what we can and can't invest on, what our main decision is. Like I said, that's why we had to have an AG opinion about pulling out of things that were like drug cartels and terrorist banks who were related to whatever. It's not like we were investing in terrorist groups, but somebody was related
Somebody
to, it was
within
like
that
7
organization
degrees of
was,
seven
yeah.
bacon to
Yeah.
somebody.
Seven
And-
bacon?
Kevin Bacon. that
Kevin
one.
Bacon, Kevin Bacon.
That kind of, but people was still drawing some attention, but he makes it very clear, statute specifically says, you have to do whatever is, one, safest, but two, is going to get you the best, return. And you don't get to go in there and say, well, we like these, we like this. It has to be based on the return. And we had to get special permission or review to be able to make even those changes. So it was really good information.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to push this, bring it back at a later date so you can have the time to review.
This
Miss-
isn't on a queue, just to keep you up. This
Yeah,
is
this-
just your reviewing for
Yeah, this is
direction,
just-
so we're still plenty of time out
Right.
before we
Yeah,
have to
okay,
worry
cool.
about.
Miss Farnham, they asked for a video of the meeting. It looks like the revision was on May 25th, 2021. Might want to look in that general area for it. You're awesome. Thank you.
on it.
Thank you. Next up is 6145. Looks like there hasn't been much of a change. We added in that the superintendent and associate superintendent of finance would be prepare the applications.
We need to change that title because that's not what we call our person.
No.
To the CFO.
Whatever your title is, if you can add that in there.
Just put your name. No, I'm just kidding. It needs to say CFO.
Well, I don't know if she is the assistant superintendent of financial services. It might be. But whatever your official title is, maybe change it.
Associate
Okay.
superintendent is what this says, which
Oh, yeah, I didn't even,
Yeah,
I was trying to
it's-
read it from a distance. Yeah.
It was just.
All right, so we're okay with making that change and moving on. 6145.01 is the next policy that we have. Let me make sure
Is that
here
a-
that's, yeah, so
Sorry,
this
this is
is.
a Brevard
it's-
policy.
Yeah, it's a Brevard one. It's not inside of the Neola's. It's lease purchasing agreement debt service ratio.
but this is actually in a different policy. I thought, I read
Is
something
it?
that talked about
I don't remember. Of
our
ours or
debt
theirs?
services. Hang on, let me see if I can get my,
I had a question. And the last sentence says annually as the board, budget is adopted, the board shall review the existing level of debt service ratio. I know it's probably in the big fat budget book that you give us, but is that on that debt service ratio? Is that, can you kind of point that out when we get around to doing our budget?
When I give the presentation, I'll make sure that
Yeah,
I highlight that.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay.
I thought I read this somewhere in a different policy. It might have been a Florida statute, I don't know. This is the danger of going between too many things.
Okay, let me just see if there's a, yeah. I just searched all the policies.
We don't have anything for debt
Nothing came
services?
up, no.
Okay. It must have been Florida statute that I was reading.
Probably. Okay, so 6145.01, we're all okay with moving forward with
Yep.
as a Brevard policy. Good. Next one up is 6150, non-resident tuition.
Yeah, I think this might be obsolete. That was my question, because I don't think if we have a student who, in this case, I think it would be like someone who, they don't live in the county. I think we just get their FTE, correct, right? We're not charging people tuition.
Right, yeah.
Well, what
That's
about
correct.
foreign exchange students?
That, we have a policy separate for
Right,
that.
yeah, I think those are governed by the different visas you have.
And there is
Not
one
necessarily
on that.
tuition.
There is
Yeah.
one in here that talks about that. But I think, I just think this might be, because we're not collecting tuition outside of our international student process that we talked about before. This actually looks like, someone doesn't live in the county, they come to one of our schools that we're charging them tuition, and that's not the way it works, right?
And Neola has no policy here, so this is a Brevard specific.
Must be fired up about something. All it does is say non-resident tuition rates. So how would this be applied to, so if we bring in somebody from a foreign, right? A foreign exchange student, we would charge them for it?
It depends on
We
the
do.
visa. Certain visas get to come and not be charged.
Right.
But if they're under a certain type of student visa, then we're supposed to charge them a certain rate. I can't
Because
remember
we
off the
can't
top
get
of
the
my
F-
head.
because we
Right, they
can't get
have
the
no
FTE. Okay.
So,
And then are there any other non-resident tuition that may come in besides being a
and now
foreign
you can
student?
go anywhere you want as long as you can get your kid there and they have space, so it's all statutory.
Okay. So, I'm okay if you guys are okay with removing it.
Yeah, if we don't need this, because the only thing, like I said, the foreign exchange students, that would be a potential, but I think this is literally
Yeah, I
just
think
obsolete language.
It's governed by other statutes, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, and with that, I have to make my exit, but I'll still be listening.
All right. Are you in pretty good, or do we need to call you? Has
Do
he
you
already
want
got
us
it
to,
set up?
why don't we
I have
take
the
a
numbers
recess
in
for a
there.
few minutes so she can get into the car and get on the phone? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna take a break.
All right, take a break.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. We are now on to the next policy revision, which is 6152, student fees, fines, and charges.
6151.
We missed
What'd I say?
6151.
6152. What did I say?
51. You're skipping a Neola, or, yeah, Neola has one that we
Neola
don't.
has it, we do not, right?
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Who knows what policy we're on? It's okay.
Okay. So we are officially on 6151.
Correct.
Pad checks. Okay, I jumped up ahead. All right. This is in Neola, but I don't think we have it in ours, right?
Correct.
We do not.
Yep.
So, all right. I don't think we need to have this. Do you guys want to?
I think I would,
Yeah, I don't either.
yeah.
Okay. I think we're good. Moving next to 6152. Inside of the Neola template, you have two versions. Let me check the updated 6152. We don't have it until 63. So ours, if you look at it,
This one needs to be updated.
yeah, this needs to be updated, but we need to make the decision on which one that we're going to update to, because you have version 1 and version 2, right? Ms. Campbell, we have to update our policy, and what we're doing
Yep,
is
I agree.
I'm going to ask each person if they wanted to use version 1 or version 2. Do you have, since I wanted to come to you first, do you have anything that you'd like to make a recommendation for?
For 6152, you know what? I did not leave a note about the version 1, version 2. I just said we needed an update. So
If you look at our
I will
policy.
leave that up to whatever staff brings back unless you guys have an opinion.
Yes, ma'am. I think if you look at our policy, it follows more of the version 1.
Yeah.
So I would say, I would ask if we could have staff look at both, but lean towards version 1 with the student fines and charges. If that's okay with you guys, bring back the recommendations, if that's okay.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Moving on to 6152.01 waiver of student fees, of school fees. So this is one that is a Neola template that we do not have. And it gives qualifications for people who have free and reduced lunch, who may be homeless, gives it the opportunity for us to waive the fees for that.
Which we currently do waive the fees for them, right? We just don't have this in policy.
Correct.
Correct.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, no. I like the idea behind it, but I know it gets us into some areas that, you know what I mean, might need review. So, Ms. Campbell, what are your feelings on 6152.01 waiver of school fees? It's not our current template, but it is our,
Right.
it is in the template.
I just had written down what are we doing now. So
Right.
if we have it somewhere else, I didn't even know, I didn't look at the administrative procedures for any of these, but if we have it somewhere, that's fine. But if we need to have it in there, I'm fine with them bringing it back to us.
Yeah, I think this comes up with the lunch that kids have at the end of the year. Remember, we were talking about that. It's about $6,000 a year, stuff like that. Ms.
Right,
Lisinski?
so
Well, it
counting,
also applies when people are applying for choice schools, they
Right.
can get a waiver for, but I think that we're doing away with that anyway, so, I'm not sure what other fees we would waive.
Sure. Ms. Lisinski?
yeah, so accounting has an accounting internal school manual that is, it's got everything in there, and they update that religiously, and that's kind of what we've been, it is what we've been using. So we will continue to use that, and that's what the schools have and what we have. But we can, more than happy to make it policy as well.
Yeah, if you can take that document that you're referencing and then take it and combine it with 6152.01, make sure they're there, that'd be great, and bring something back.
Okay.
I think it would also be smart for us to add in there, because some students might not fall necessarily under the free or reduced lunch or even homelessness, but you might have a family who endures a financial hardship that is a temporary situation that maybe we could add into the policy, something that would allow for them to apply for a waiver on fees. Just for, I mean, like, my daughter's in chorus, so there's a $50 fee that's being collected. I'm just thinking things like that where it's like, hey, this might be something that would be a roadblock for a family. So to have it available on those circumstances would probably be really good. I think it would be smart to add it into our policy.
I like that.
Okay. So with that, we're going to move forward with 61.6152.01 to go to Ms. Lisinski for review on the document that they already have at the school-based locations and come back to us with a recommendation.
Right,
And the next one is inside of our policy, we have 6180.
Right.
Which is not in the, it's a Brevard one, and it's a sales surge tax. Just basically says that the administration is district staff. I think that makes sense. You guys are okay with keeping this one and moving it on as
yep,
revised?
yep, just, it's been reviewed.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell, you good?
Yes,
Okay. Moving on from 6180, the next one up is 6180.01, allocation and use of sales surtax.
Right. Brevard specific.
Yep, this is Brevard specific. I think we keep this. There hasn't been anything that's
we
changed.
actually we just revised and voted on this last week at our board meeting.
6180.01, we changed.
Yeah, Sue brought one forward. It just finished rulemaking. So
Okay.
it might still be with Neola to get on the website.
So we're going to bring that back.
No, it was approved.
We're
It's
done.
approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just not in here.
It's just
We
not,
already approved.
yeah, it's not updated on the website yet.
Got it. Okay. So if that's the case, then 6180.01, we move on. 6180.03, temporary transfer of sales surge tax cash between groups. Sounds pretty interesting. If you guys are okay with keeping this and having staff review it to see if they need any changes, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes,
All right. The next one that we have is 6210, which is fiscal planning. It's not in our current policies, but it is inside the Neola. Not sure if you guys wanted to take a look at that and let us, make a decision on if we need to add it or not.
are you on 6210?
Yes. Yep. Sorry, I didn't.
So I had made the note that, it seems like some of that is covered in our 6120, the fund balance policy that we were talking about moving to a different number. Whatever we do needs to be consistent with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think, what I liked about this was develop a 5-year capital work program and a 5-year long-range budget projection. We kind of do that, but I don't
We
think that's
do.
in any kind of a policy, maybe not.
That's
The capital work plan is in policy.
right.
Okay.
That's-
Okay, well then we should be good. So 6210, if you guys are okay with it, we don't need it, doesn't seem like it's something that we need to add to our components.
No,
Good?
I think it's like, I don't know why we're doing these things,
Right.
so, again, is it
Okay.
smart to have it in
I
policy?
feel like each of the components is already in a different policy.
Yeah. Okay, so then,
All right, next one is 60, so we're not going to move on that. The next one is 6220, budget preparation. This is just that the superintendent shall present the budget for review in accordance with, pretty much, isn't this pretty much state, it's pretty much already somewhere in statutory law, so,
And it's in trim.
so do we need to put it in here, or are we okay?
I think we're okay.
Okay, we're good? Okay, we're good. Ms. Campbell, what are your thoughts on 6220? Ms. Lisinski said it's
Yeah,
already
I-
in trim.
I questioned whether we needed this one.
Okay,
Policy 6220, so if we're not gonna have 6220, they'll need to change that. There's also a section where we have to decide, are we
Yes.
gonna do loans to schools? And I think we had, Brevard does not do that. And so that would be my recommendation also to continue that, to not add that part in there.
to not do bonuses to schools, okay.
well,
Well, we have to pick
it's kind of a
option.
contested argument. What ended up happening is that when we loaned to certain schools, they had difficulty paying it back, and it fell back onto the school district.
Yeah,
And then, I think, there was a couple of them that were out there, and that's what Ms. Campbell's referencing. So, are you guys,
yeah, I would not be in favor of doing loans to schools.
I didn't think it was a bad idea, but what I
Well,
would like to.
any request for a loan would have to come to the board for approval.
Right. Ms. Campbell, what I would like to do is offer this to staff to develop what their recommendations would be, since there seems to be some updates that need to occur, and then have them bring back that to us. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Does that sound okay with you guys? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, 6233, direction is that the staff will take a look at what the new version is and make recommendations to what to update. Okay? All right. 6320.
No,
They have a
Neola has a
6234.
I'm sorry, I
6234.
got ahead of myself, didn't I? All right, so the next one up is 6234, use of discretionary lottery funds.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Lottery.
Are we currently receiving lottery funds, Ms. Lisinski?
Seems inside our budget.
The school recognition dollars come from lottery. And that is all, but we don't have discretionary lottery dollars that come to us.
What is discretionary lottery dollars as opposed to, what's the difference? Is
I
there like a
honestly-
different pool of
I
money?
think this might be really old.
Yeah, I honestly don't think
Yeah,
schools have gotten
this
that
is
for
a
years.
2009 from Neola, so it's been a while.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Campbell, there's some discussion wrapped around 6234 that we do no longer need it because we don't have any discretionary lottery funds, and that it's an old policy. Are you okay with that direction, or
Oh.
do you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, well, I don't want to add any more policies that we don't need, but my concern is I thought we were still receiving about $6 million a year from the lottery. But if I'm remembering the way Neola, because I'm not looking at it, I promise, the way Neola had it, it said there was something, a statutory reference to every school board has to have a policy showing how they're going to spend this. So if we're required to, we probably need to put it in. But with the change of the state budgets, it may not be relevant anymore. I don't know.
Well, with the school recognition dollars, we do have to submit, or the schools do have to submit how they plan on using those
Correct.
dollars.
So why don't we do this, since it seems like there is some sort of funding wrapped around it, why don't we have staff look over the discretionary funds, this policy, and see if we need to put it in place? And then if you can, Ms. Lisinski, bring it back. Are you okay with Ms. Campbell, them verifying that if we are receiving it, that this policy may need or may not need to be referenced and bringing it back to us?
Yeah.
And can I dig a little deeper on this school recognition fund conversation since we're having it?
Uh-oh.
How are schools recognized? I'm assuming that the dollar amount that they receive is tied to how well the school is performing. Is that a correct assumption?
Correct. If they achieve an A or they improve a letter grade, they get a set amount of money based on their enrollment.
Okay, and is that something that we decided here at the district, or is that something that's
It's a
in
state
sta-
formula.
State has told us that that's how that
Correct.
has to be dispersed. Okay,
Correct.
all right. It just seems like that leaves some of our more difficult schools or more challenged schools that don't receive additional funds there that really could potentially use it. So that might be something that we want to talk to legislation about too,
Yeah,
as far as,
that's been how this school recognition money has been dispersed for 20 years.
yeah.
The other
But
thing-
if we're trying to bring those schools up, that are down, right? I mean, there's that, so.
I think the other thing is that a lot of the other schools receive Title I funding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a great review. I mean, that is, like, I think we should look at that as an overview of, you know what I mean? Because there may be, I'm sure that staff's already doing that. So total funding going to each school based on different.
Well, and to be clear too, the school recognition funds are money that's spent directly at the school, or is that dispersed amongst teachers and staff, or?
Most of it goes to staff bonuses. The school creates a plan and it's voted on by the staff and the school advisory council.
So then it
But
seems
the
like-
bulk of it goes to staff bonuses.
So then that would even cause a further problem to staffing some of our more difficult schools because they're going to miss an additional bonus.
That
in
could be
essence.
accurate.
That would be accurate. So this would be something that would be good to talk to our legislation about.
Ms. Campbell, what was the discussion was wrapped around? Some of our high-performing schools may not be some of the ones that are needing the school recognition funds. So Ms. Wright had mentioned that maybe part of our legislative discussion platform should be that we discuss how to possibly reallocate some of those funding sources, because we'd see the better teachers arguably would go to a place where they could receive that funding rather than going to a school where they don't. So I think it's a much good argument. I just wanted to kind of bring it up to you if you didn't hear it.
No, I heard most of it. Only person I can't hear Dr. Rendell and Cindy very well. I think they just need to get a little closer to their microphones if they're on.
Okay.
10-4.
All right. Dr. Rendell says 10-4. All right. The next one that I have here is 6235.
We
fund
discussed-
balance.
we
That's the one
discussed that
just
with
discussed. Right,
6120, yeah.
right. It's the one that we discussed. Are you guys okay with the direction that we had? I think it was 6120 that we were looking at that. and
Right, we're
moved
gonna
it.
renumber it. or-
Yeah. Ms. Campbell, we're back onto the fund balance from 6120. We just wanted to make sure that there's nothing
Yep.
that you wanted to add here before we move on. It's just kind of hunting it here and then having them review it.
Nope, I'm good with that.
Okay, so the next one is 6320, which is purchasing and contracting for commodities and contractual services. Seems that this policy came up in 2022. It's one that we do not have in our current policies.
Yeah, we do.
I was wondering if you guys are okay with.
We-
We do, we
we
just have
haven't.
it called procurement and contracting. Sorry, I'm trying to, we have that policy.
It's not in mine.
6320,
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
it's stapled, yeah, I was gonna say, look for staple. You were
Got
ahead of yourself.
Got ahead of myself. Okay, so we currently have this, and let me check the date. I'm gonna do it. Looks like we were last revised in 2019. This was last revised in 2022. Ms. Campbell, floor is open for you. What would you like to say on this?
Yeah, so I definitely think we need to look at these updates as well as the current legislative updates from, this is on the list, this is the first one on the list of ones they updated this year. They had the statement about no preference for certain, political or ideological things for vendors. I'm gonna make a just generic statement for the next several because I'm about to have to mute for a bit. But we have this one, but we don't have the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. But they're all related to procurement. So, and I know when we had our last general counsel, Amy Enval, procurement was her thing. And so she did a really thorough job of making sure our procurement policy was thorough. But these next 7, if if there's something in those that we don't have in our 6320, then we might need those extra. But if we already have them in our 6320, I don't want to add a bunch of policy numbers just to have them.
Duly noted, Ms. Campbell. I think the idea would be to have staff look at it and add them to if there's any updates. I understand where you're going 100%.
There is one section in here where it talks about the vendor preference for veteran business enterprises, which I don't know that we have that in ours. I think that would be something very good to add. That's optional, so.
Ms. Campbell, Ms. Wright wanted to make sure that we added the veteran
Yes.
preference for the procurement.
Yeah, I want to say, maybe I'm thinking we have a veteran preference for employees, but I was going to say that
We
just
do.
came to us sometime in last year, but that may have been not for vendors.
Yep, we do. Okay, I like that idea also. So what I think we should do is if you look at these, just like Ms. Campbell was saying, vendor preference, construction contracting, cone of silence, procurement. The question is, do we want to add one big policy to include all of these, or do we want to have them branched out? Because what Ms. Campbell's saying, and it looks to be true, is we don't have any of those others because they're actually inside of this larger one, right?
I might have just got ahead of myself on that one, because, sorry, I did, I think, hold on. I'm on the next policy, I scrolled way too far.
6320.01.
Yeah, sorry.
So, to Ms. Camp, so what she had mentioned is as we're going through these, if they're not inside of the larger policy,
Yeah,
then she's okay with sending them, but if they are inside of there, that she would not want to create a bunch of policies,
yeah,
which I agree with. But when you look at so purchasing and contracting, I would say, needs to be updated because of the difference in the years. So that's number one. I would feel very confident that 6320 needs to be updated. And then moving forward, Are you guys okay with that?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
So Paul, if you can have that updated and have staff look at it. Next one is the vendor preference. This is not in 6320.
Yeah, no, it's not anything in there, so.
It's weird. It's like, so you've got.
Well,
vendor
some of it
preference.
is, like the bid protest stuff is built into
Right.
our policy,
Right.
but some of it's not, so. I think that's where Ms. Campbell was saying we might want to just send all of those to purchasing and see if it's not in there, do we need to add it or should we add it?
Well, so
Yeah.
for me, like not only is bid protest in 63.01 in ours, but then it's also in 60, in the, I'm sorry.
There's a
6320, it's
6326.
in there.
Yeah.
Then it's in 6320.01, then it's in 6326. So this is basically spider web of different policies, so.
Okay.
I think we use what Ms. Campbell said and just take 6320 and then take all of them, all the way up to 6326 and combine them. So I'll read them to you. So 6320, which is purchasing and contracting, update that one. And then the 6320.01 vendor preference, 632020 or 22 construction contracting, 6324 cone of silence, 6325 procurement, 6326 bid protests would all be reviewed to see if they fit into 6320. Does that make sense?
This is gonna be like a 45-page long policy that it's all said and done
But
when you
it
add
goes
all those
along
things
with our
in there.
new, it goes along with our new system and everything
I
else that we
know,
have, so
I
I'm
know.
really excited about it. All right, if you guys are okay with moving up to, let me get past this one.
All right, we don't have the next one either, which is acquisition of professional. Well, this would kind of still go under procurement, would
Right,
it
so
not?
60, oh, did I miss something here?
6330.
Right, 6330 should be your next one.
6340.
Right, so
Well, no,
6330, we're gonna need to add, yeah, so 6330 acquisition of professionals, 6334 pre-qualification of contractors. That should also be a part of the 6320
Procurement process.
purchasing and contracting. Okay, Paul?
Mhm.
All right, you're right, Ms. Campbell. 6340 is our next one. We have a policy with that. Whew. Looks like the last time this Neola one was updated was 2023 with a new statute, but it looks like 2002 was the last time it was really used. Ours has more statutory references inside of it. But ours modifications, so,
In letter C, we need to update some position titles, is a note that I have.
A project review task force to review written.
so this gets into some of the
And-
stuff that, go ahead, Ms. Campbell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't write down which position titles. That's the only note I have is we need to update the position titles in letter C. So sorry, I can't give you more detail than that.
So this is the policy that like when you have your friends that come up and say, I'll build the dugout for the team, right? I'll donate the playground, I'll do all that stuff is inside of here. So it seems that there's a little bit different of the maximums. So the Neola template that we have gets into about 25,000. We're at about 50,000. That's probably because in 2002 when it was made for the Neola template, that was an appropriate number. $25,000 doesn't even get you a playground equipment anymore. So I feel confident that ours is strong, but I would like to ask staff to review it just to make sure. And then, like Ms. Campbell said, change some of those staff descriptions.
Yeah, I propose we just update the current policy to make the corrections.
Yep, easy enough. Good to go? All right, next up, change orders. Oh, boy.
Which we don't have, I don't think. We have payment of claims was our next policy, so 6345. So we currently do this, though. I mean, honestly, this is.
All the time.
Yeah, Sue brings forward any kind of change order on contracts that she has that,
So
I
what
don't know what the
would,
dollar amount that triggers it is, but it's
Yeah, what I would like to do is just say, give this to
Yeah.
Sue and say, Sue, do you need this as a policy? If not, because the change orders, they always happen, every single contract, everything else. Thank you, Ms. Lisinski. Sorry we're out of your area.
I think she brings them to us for any change order that's over $50,000, I believe.
Yeah, but I think it would be great just to have Sue and her department look over this and see, do we need this? Is it covered
Right.
somewhere else?
Okay,
Right.
So,
That's it. You good?
good.
All right, use of credit cards, 6423
We don't, okay.
is the next one. And, I mean, we have, don't we have P cards?
correct.
And, but I don't think they're credit cards, they're just debit cards, right?
They can be processed as credit cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Susan, the next Neola run actually refers to P cards. So my question was, we probably need either this one or the next one. But if the next one talks about P cards, that's
Yeah.
probably more appropriate for us.
It's just, I didn't know, like, so, I think the other one is appropriate, which is credit cards. I just didn't know that we actually had some that might run as a credit card. You know what I mean? Because usually your P cards are just taking out of the balance of the bank account. Which that's a whole nother mess. I agree with you. What I would like to do, Dr. Rendell, is hand 6420 and the other one, which is 6423 to you guys, and just take a look at it, see what is appropriate to bring back, and go from there, if that's okay.
6423 and 6424.
Yes, sir, because they're kind of
Yeah,
the same thing.
exactly. Yep.
And if you wanted to take a look at those, I
Yep.
think that we could do that.
You might be able to condense them into one policy.
Yep. Next one up is 6440, cooperative purchasing. School board recognized advantage of centralized purchasing. This gets into, you know what I mean, being able to work with larger co-ops. So you have some that are like federal, some that are state, some that are, there's consortium agreements and stuff like that are out there. We don't have this currently in policy. I don't know if we have to in order to do it, because I know we do.
Is this similar to what a piggyback contract is, where we're kind of looking at a vendor that's used somewhere else in the state and we just hop in? Wouldn't that be similar to this or no?
Piggybacking is where you're just jumping onto another contract that exists. Consortiums were like, I know they're big with the smaller districts where they'll all go in on a purchase because they can purchase more
Okay.
and get better deals because they're buying in bigger volumes.
But we wouldn't be considered a small district anyways, so.
No, they still have like a Central Florida consortium, so if you could
Okay.
jump in there potentially, like if everybody was buying the same books, for instance, you could potentially order in a larger volume and get discounted rates, but
But you're right, the break point of discounts are below us. So like with healthcare, with a lot of the other things that go on, our break points are lower than us to where those prices. But what it does is, and this is something that I was working on a couple of years ago, was that we could open it up to all of our other cities and say, look, let's do a janitorial services contract, and you guys can be a part of it, but it won't help us, but it'll help all the other cities. And that was something that was on the list of us when we go to the cities, because like you have, say, Melbourne Beach has 34 employees.
Right.
Right, when they go to buy tissue paper, it's gonna be this X amount of dollars, but if they were to join us, you know what I mean, it would be a little bit different. And we
Would
just
that
work-
cause any kind of additional work for our staff, though, as far
Nope.
as
It's just
processing it or anything?
All it is a cost, so they, part of the procurement. It's
Mr. Susan,
Yes, ma'am.
I remember that when Christy did the presentation for us, we are in a consortium with the county. I don't see this pointing to that, but she did say we are in a consortium, not of other school districts, but with other government entities and groups. So it might be good if we don't have that as part of our procurement policy, if we need it, let her take a look at it, because she did say that we are in one.
Yeah, I know that we are in some of them, and I know that there's some that are still on the books from before that we don't take advantage of or do. But no, I think it's a good thing. I think that we can utilize it. I just don't know if it's somewhere else. So
Yeah, I
we
mean,
can
if
ask
I don't disagree that it could be beneficial to some of our municipalities that are smaller. So I would say let's kick this one to Christy and ask her, is it something that we currently are offering? This would be a great way to help some of our local governments.
and
So
it's related to 6450, the next one as well.
What'd you
So-
say, Paul?
6450 is purchasing locally, so it brings in a lot of the local government. So if we want to kick both of those to Christy, we can do that and have her evaluate.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's so just so you guys know, that consortium is good because we can benefit some of the other ones, but there are some where if we join the county, gives us some significant price. So like if if we were able to, on the healthcare, the majority of healthcare stuff that you go through is pretty much under about 6,000. Anything above that, you're gonna get pretty much the same rates. But sometimes if you bundle by on healthcare, you can pretty much send a message to somebody that may not be doing a good job. Does that make sense? So having those interlocals work two different ways. Now the next, so if you're okay with giving that to Christy, that one, and asking her to review it.
Both of those.
Both of those?
But the other one I wanted to just talk to you real quick, 6450 local purchasing. One of the problems that we have, I had a big, when we first came out with local purchasing, like giving a percentage to the local guy to get more and all that other stuff, that's great, but understand that sometimes that inhibits us because the local person may not have the best rates, the best job, the best all of that, and he might still get it. 5% is not bad. I've seen and been a part of RFPs that are 25% to the local guys, right? And that inhibited them for a better product. So I think we send this to Christy because I think we already have some of this stuff in there. But I just wanted you guys to know that that local purchasing, you can do that, but like when you go to say get vendors, like construction, you may say, okay, well, we want this local vendor to do it. They might not have the capacity to do what we need, so they win the bid and then we can't get the job stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. I have mixed feelings on this one because I understand the local preferential, like we want to employ our people. We want
Yep.
to make sure that that money stays here in the county, but I do understand there's a time where that isn't always feasible to do. It doesn't make the most sense. You can't do it all the time. So.
But I do know that like on the construction side, like Wharton Smith, many of our other contractors use as much as they can. Like if they can, they go local.
Right.
Which is a good thing, and they get, I think that's good. So I would say 6450 to go to them, but I just wanted to have that discussion real quick. Thank you, Paul. Next one is 6460,
Vendor
vendor
relations.
relations. I think that this is another one we just send up to Christy for review. Are you guys okay with that?
Would this kind of be like our conflict of interest?
Yeah, there's some stuff in there, so not to accept any form of compensation payment or anything like that. I think that this, you can see it referencing policies that are already in existence for board members and school personnel. It just kind of gives an overview to it, and it's in here. So I would give it to Christine if she feels like if we need it, we can add it. If not, we
Okay.
can move on. Is that okay?
Yep.
Miss
Yeah,
Campbell?
I just had the
Yeah.
quick note, we do not have policy 1113, 3113, 4113, or 1214, or 4214. So if they do decide to bring it back, we'll need to make sure that we refer to any policies that we actually have and don't have those in there.
Yeah, but I do feel like some of those other ones, Miss Campbell, that I'm looking here, we've actually reviewed. So yeah, let's have them review it and take a look at it. But I think that some of this stuff is in other places. So,
Yeah.
okay, all right, so is that good, clear direction for you, Mr. Gibbs? Okay, moving on, payment of claims, 6470. We now have this one. This is the first one that we have currently. This was updated, we updated this in Brevard in 2014. Neola was 2002. Ours is a little bit different than theirs. The Neola update has much more in it. I would ask if you guys are okay with, since we don't really have very deep knowledge on this, if we pass it on to staff and then they can review it and bring it back up.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Ms. Campbell?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Next up is 6480, expenditures. I feel like this was last updated in 2016 in our book. This was last updated on theirs in 2023. I feel like this is something that we need to give the staff to look over and update. You guys okay with that? Ms. Campbell, everybody seems in agreement to move this to staff since there seems to be a
Yes.
significant update.
I agree. It needs to be updated, but also there's a little section on the bottom that talks about petty cash.
Yeah.
That if we don't have a policy 6620, we need to add that section, and we don't have a 6620, so we probably need to add that little petty cash there.
It's if we want to use petty cash, which I'm not a big fan of if we have P cards. But yeah, I mean, I just say let staff do it. Do we
Yeah.
give cash out, Dr. Rendell? I should ask the question. Don't answer that.
What do you think that armored car's for?
No, but petty cash is like, hey.
No, I
come on
know. I'm teasing. Those
Oh,
joke.
Careful.
joke.
Oh, we'll just keep moving.
I'm
And
sorry.
moving on. I
Okay.
think that the direction on that 6480 is that the expenditures goes to staff for review. 6490 is the next one.
Which we don't have.
We do not have this one. It deals with legal services for employees, officers, and public officials. This is interesting, considering some of the stuff that we're dealing with now. Do you guys want to have this conversation? Look at this. Ms. Campbell, what is your thoughts on this? I have some that
On
I'd like to say.
6490.
Yeah, 6490.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Paul's opinion. What happens because we don't have this policy? What happens? And then my other thought on it was I wouldn't want to put an amount.
Right.
Well-
Currently in statute, there is a provision that authorizes the board to pick up representation costs and for employees that are sued in the line of their duties. If it's outside the scope and line of their duties, then the board has no obligation to pay for those legal costs.
I'll be honest, I'd
I'm
like,
a fan of this policy. I think we should add this policy.
okay. Do you want to stop for a minute, go pause it, and then come back and bring it back and look at, because there's a significant amount of options there?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Ms. Campbell, considering Ms. Wright wants to bring
Yeah.
it, she wants to pause on this and possibly bring it back. She wants to review it because there's a lot of options on there. I seem to agree with her. And I think there's some questions to Paul. Are you okay with punting this policy to the next review when we do the 7,000s to come back?
Well, I'd like for Paul to kind of weigh in on one, what our practice has been and what, what his recommendations would be on this too. And
Yeah.
I'm fixing to have to check out, you guys, so.
Well, Ms. Campbell, I apologize. Paul did speak to that. Do you want him to speak to that again into the microphone for you, or are you okay with waiting to do it?
Yeah,
at the
that'd be
next one?
great. And
Okay.
then I
No,
was gonna have to-
well, when I bring it back, I can check which options I think would be applicable, and then you guys can review those.
He's mumbling over there, Ms. Campbell. What he said was he basically said he's going to bring back some recommendations for the different options to us at the time, and then
Okay.
justify that during the conversation, if that's okay.
Sounds good. All right, you guys, have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
See ya. All right. Okay, next up. 6510 is the next. We have that policy last revised in 2019. Seems that this, our policy is a little bit more robust than what you see over there, okay? They last updated in 2002. We did in 2019. Ours has Roman numerals there.
Oh.
First time I'm seeing that.
Well, that's our format. We take all of Neola's and try and put Roman numerals and break them into sections, so it's easier to discuss. You can say Roman numeral 1 versus paragraph, whatever.
Just haven't seen, just looks more authoritative. All right, so are you guys okay with keeping what we have, or do you want staff to review and then bring it back? Ours is updated past what theirs is.
Yeah. I think just maybe look at asking Mr. Dufresne to double check it and make sure that there's nothing there that he sees that's,
Oh, Mr. Dufresne will have, if we can ask Mr. Dufresne to review 6510 for any updates and see if there's anything he wants to add. All right. 6520, payroll deductions. Oh, boy.
that's gonna be his,
No, that's Ms. Lisinski. Payroll
we
deductions.
revised this one, it looks like in December of,
Yeah, we just
we
revised
did
this one.
this one, so.
Yeah, ours is more recent.
Yeah, so I think this one's okay.
Yep, I think we're good. We don't need any update on that one. So just leave that one alone, Paul. First one, I think, all day. 6521, tax sheltered annuity plans and accounts.
I don't, yeah, I flagged this one because I was a little bit like, what?
So here's what it is. Right now, we have, what is it, Dr. Rendell, I've been on this thing for a little bit. So we have a bunch of vendors.
Okay.
So right now, tax sheltered annuity plans and accounts. So tax annuities are part of your 403B and 427 investment plans or 457, whatever those are. Some districts go out to bid, put it under one belt and say, which reduces the overall points that our people are charged. So the good side to that is that you have low cost for the overall. You'll save probably 1 or 2 years on the back end of it, okay? The bad side, and you have people that actually are part of a communications plan where they go to they basically sell their product, but at the same time, they're communicating and educating the employees. Our model is different, which is the same as many of the other places, is that we have multiple vendors that are catered throughout the year. So like Valak was big for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they kind of fell to the side. Now a couple of the Valak guys have gone off and done other ones. So we have like a considerable amount of them that all charge what's known as annuities. Now annuities are a higher cost for each one of the plans for the 401 or the 403Bs in the points that they charge, because there's guarantees and other things. There's a reason for that. Because they have a smaller amount of people than they have to have leverage more amount of the investment. There's an opportunity to move to some of the other plans that are not annuities, which have lower points, but these vendors will not look at it, is what it is. So, you know, I was in the process, just so you know, of requesting all of the points based on there. I did that. Ms. Scipio gave me all of the points that they're charging, all of the different vendors. And then I brought it to my friend who's a 401k advisor, and he said, look, he said, unless you guys go down to one vendor, you should just keep the current plans that you have if everybody's happy and just move on. So I kind of dropped it.
Okay.
But that's what this is, just so you know. So with that, do you think we need a policy, or are we okay to keep going where we are?
Well, I think if we're currently offering it, then yeah, we keep it in policy, right?
The policies are identical.
Yeah.
It's just the Neola update references statute. That's
Good.
the only difference.
So you just want to add statute to it, and move on?
Well, you just keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
All right, 60. I think Rendell's getting a little testy over there.
No.
He's like,
No.
man, let's get through this. Come
He's
on, I got
not.
things to do.
We're getting close, guys.
6530 reemployment assistance.
That's
So,
the same.
yeah, we have unemployment compensation is our term. Ours was updated in 13, Neola's was 2022. You want to send that to staff for review?
I think we need to rename it though, because the state has gone to that reemployment assistance
Yeah,
term
that's what I
instead
was
of,
saying.
yeah.
If we can send it to staff, it seems like there's been an update. Paul?
It's just an updated name, really, I think.
I think they're the same.
Yeah, they're the same, it's just the name. Can we
Right.
change the name? Is that like an administrative change or a
A technical change?
technical change?
I'll check and see if I can get it in on a technical change.
I mean, we're just technically changing it to what the state now calls
Right.
unemployment, reemployment assistance, so. Which I like it, because we want to get them reemployed, not, you know, I get the idea behind it. All right,
All right. So the next one is
consultant agreement.
6540, which has now also been updated with the new Neola from 2023. So what I would like to do is offer this to get staff to review it, since it just got updated,
Yeah,
and let staff, it's local purchasing, let Ms. Christie take a look at it, if you guys are okay with that. It's,
yeah, that's fine.
what are you looking at?
Just there's two versions of this, the consultant agreement and.
But
the
there's
self-
one that just came out from the Florida legislature
Oh.
that is the most recent update,
I'm
and I
not
was going
looking
to
at the
say,
most
let's
recent
just
one.
look at that,
Okay,
if that's cool. Mr. Paul, if they could look at the most recent update from July of 2023, see what,
That was 6440, not 6540.
6450. Oh, jeez, what did I do?
6540.
Yeah,
What did I
we're
do?
on 6540.
Oh, man,
So
I did it
you're-
again.
Yeah.
I did it again. I apologize.
So there's not a 23
Yep,
update to it.
disregard the chair for saying that. All right, consulting agreements.
okay, I was like, I'm not looking at the new updated Neola ones, which it would
Yeah,
be so
there,
great.
there
if
are
it-
no more July 23 updates.
good. I
in
can
Neola,
exit out
so,
of that box.
Yeah, we
All
are done with the
Close,
23
thank
updates.
you. Thank you for that. All right.
I know we have consultants that we currently do work with. There's two versions here.
Personally, I like version 2 better, just because it's a little simpler. It's not
Yeah.
limiting
I'm good.
a lot of those. If we're gonna put a consultant, employment of consultants into policy, I think version 2 is a little cleaner.
So we have so I do know that like Career and Technical has a consultant that works with them. I do know that consultants come in and work every once in a while. So if we can kick this one, I like version 2 too, to Christie, and see if there's something that she would like to add. And then that would go that route. That's okay. All right. Next
This
up,
one has to be updated.
6550. travel and expenses. Yeah, this is the one that we already, so this was updated in 2014. This is this has been updated. I know for a fact, Neola 2023. What, this has some of the stuff that the state has been inside of here making changes. Our policy was not updated. If we can send the most updated policy to staff and then have staff just come back with the recommendations that they have inside of here,
Okay.
that's okay. Paul, are you okay with that? Okay. Ooh, this is a big one. Next one is 6605, crowdfunding.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Look at all the
I
statutes.
know that, yeah, I know, because this was something that we were working through. I know we changed this in 2021. I know ours, Paul, ours has been updated past the Neola one. Do you feel pretty confident in our crowdfunding policy? Because I know we were going around, there was one person that was applying to be a crowdfunder, and I learned so much about it. Paul, do you feel confident with this one?
I'm happy with ours, but I can get with Cindy and see if her group, who handles a lot of it, with the other staff that handle in procurement, to see if they would recommend any tweaks to like issues.
Yeah.
Do we want to do these? I know I've had discussions around perhaps making it once a year we open the application window for new people, because they're very time consuming.
They're not only time consuming, but they're very pushy.
Yeah,
So-
when we get new ones, in the middle
Because
of
they want to
stuff.
get in and do business, right?
Yeah.
And they just, and poor Paul is like, I remember that one was like 26 emails back and
Yeah.
forth.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, so anything you guys want to do, that's great.
I think it's hilarious that we have more statute listed than our policy is in length, it looks like, on this one, so.
It's a,
Looks
it's
like
a
this was
weird one.
heavily researched in 2021.
Yep. All right, next one is, so if you're okay with that direction, Paul, that you actually made the recommendation for, so that's good. Next one is 6610, if you can. Neola updated this in 2018. We updated ours in 2010. If you can have staff review that one, that would be my recommendation, and come back. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Feel good about that, Paul?
Yeah.
All right. Next one is petty cash funds. Again, petty cash fund.
Oh, wait, we don't have that.
6620, we don't have that. Not a big fan of petty cash, but if we do have it, maybe ask staff if they think that they need it, but I'm okay not having it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of petty cash either, honestly.
Not when you have P cards and stuff like that that you can use.
I know that, well, yeah.
Okay? Direction from there, change fund, 6621, we do not have that one. Recognize a change fund in day-to-day operations, school district, authorize establish a change fund in a designated building cashier who would be responsible. I don't think.
No, I don't like this one either.
Mr. Trent, we good? If I say something inappropriate, just holler and say, no, I disagree. Okay. So I think we're going to pass on this one, 6621, we're not going to use.
6625, we would not use.
6625 is petty cash accounts again. Another area, if you can have staff review for the petty cashness of it. We're okay with that? Okay. 6661 is the next one up, instructional materials allocation.
We need this one.
Yeah, there's 3 Florida statutes that are inside there. It was updated last year. I think that we need this one, Paul. If you can send it to staff to just have them review to make sure that there's any changes they might want to make up to that, but I do think we need that. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right, moving on. Trust and agency fund. We do not have this currently. It was updated in 2002.
Is this something that we need, though? Because I know that there's been, well, I guess no, not really, because we're not the administration of scholarships. We had a situation that happened last school year with a scholarship that wasn't awarded, and I vaguely remember it. I know Dr. Sullivan was working, I think the organization maybe closed, I don't know, or something, it was something funky. I don't know, is this something that we need? Because of a student that gets a scholarship, that fund, those funds aren't coming to us, it's going through whatever organization.
Correct. I don't know of us operating a trust and agency fund.
Yeah,
Doesn't sound like I don't really want to do any of that, so.
no, I just assume stay out of
If
it.
you guys are
too.
okay, we'll move on. We do not need 6670. The next one up is 6680 recognition. It is not in Neola. It's a Brevard policy.
I know, I was actually really happy when I saw this, that we're, I mean, this is good though, because it gives us the ability, from a
Yep.
board's perspective, to be able to recognize certain administrators or things that are going on, staff, students, citizens.
Pins, plaques.
Yeah, we can give
Token
some
awards.
So,
Other amenities.
I really liked this policy personally, so I was like, hey, if this is
Yeah.
something that we're able to use, I didn't realize it until I was going to the policy book, so.
I like this. I don't want to touch it.
Something I will be utilizing. I'm ready to get some plaques made for some
Let's
people.
go. And just so you guys know, Dr. Mullins used to have these pins. He ordered a bunch of them.
I have a bag of them.
Yeah. Well, you got some. Okay.
Would you like some?
No, I've got them.
Okay.
I have a bunch of them. I do. Okay. 6680. Next up, 6685 is what's inside of the funding for promotion, public relations, and hospitality. Oh, sounds like this me. 2017, board prohibits the expenditure of for any purchase that are not directly related to students, expenditures of board funds. So this is kind of, where this dives into is our funding coming from PI and some of the other stuff, I think is where this is kind of coming into. So if you see derived from auxiliary enterprises and undersigned gifts up to the limit of the state board or revenue, purpose of promotion, all that stuff. So this speaks to that. If it would be okay with you guys, I'd like to punt on this because I'm going to bring forward some of the B2K12 stuff and just kind of get through it. There's a couple of principles that have shown some concern, and I just want to get that thing back on the rails.
Yeah,
So if you guys are okay with punting this thing.
I'm okay with punting it. I mean, I think this is probably a good policy though
I
to
think
look at.
I think we definitely are interested in this, but we're going to have some discussion wrapped around some of the other things. So Paul, if you can just pause on this one. Thank you. All right. 6700 Fair Labor Relations Standards Act.
Which is
All right.
Ours.
Says Audit Committee.
Ours says audit committee. I don't think these are the same.
So is there another place that the Audit Committee
Yeah,
sits?
it says, well, it's just external
Internal
financial
Audit
audits.
Office.
It's on the
Okay.
next policy. It's Neola 6830 is where their
Okay.
audit stuff comes in. So this.
So when I read this, there's not only legal, there's Florida statutes, there's articles, there's the state constitution. What I would recommend is that we take 6700, which seems to be one of the later ones, and then add this one as the Fair Relations Standard Act.
I think a lot of this is defined in our contract is that correct? I mean, with the union? When you look at this and it starts talking about our work week, how we define it, these are all things that are established and set out in contracts. So do we need to have
A lot of it would be applicable in contract. A lot of this, though, is federal, like the FLSA is the federal act and incorporated in state statute. So when they're saying define work week, that's if we get an EEOC complaint alleging that we failed to pay overtime. They're going to look at they want to know what your policies are on the defined work week for what positions.
Okay.
They may be in job descriptions. This position's Monday to Friday from 8 to 5, whatever the job description, but I'm not positive on that.
So then would your advice be to go ahead and?
I
look at-
can look at what we have elsewhere and then bring back a recommendation if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, because this has Florida statutory law, constitutions,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It might need to be added. Sounds pretty important.
Yeah. So.
All right, so,
So clarification, so 6700 Audit Committee, that is similar to the Neola 6830.
and 35, yeah.
So,
What I said was, if 6700, send it to Paul for review, move 6700 Audit Committee to either 6830 or 6840.
Renumber it.
Right, renumber it. And then what I'm about to do is just ask staff to look at those two,
Yep.
along with 6700, the old policy,
yep,
and review them for moving forward.
okay.
Does that make sense, Dr.
Yeah.
Lindo? All right. 3 more to go. You guys holding up
I know,
okay?
you're like, okay, we're gonna get to the end. Let's go through them quick.
All right.
The audit committee, those policies, obviously, we're gonna ask the staff to look at because this is a far more extensive policy than what we have in place right now for
Right.
audit committee.
So if you look at it, it moves from 6700 to 6830, right? And 6835, sorry.
Yeah,
And then you have 6840, 6840. Well, then if you turn to ours, which is the next one, 6705, Charter of Internal Audit,
right.
right? And then that's the last policy we have. And then there's all of these. I think, Paul, if you can, take our original 6700 along with 6705, look at the updated policies from 6830, 6835, and then the two versions for 6840 and figure out what that looks like and bring it back to us. Does that make sense, you
Yeah.
guys? Because it's just too much.
There's a lot there that
Yep.
needs to be done.
You guys okay?
Mhm.
That's the end of it. You guys have anything else in the 6,000s that you would like to bring up?
No?
You just bang, you got it done. I did have a couple of things that I wanted to just give you guys a heads up on. We have that legislative review I put on the agenda,
Right?
just so that you guys could be prepared. The way that I put it on there was that September 9th, we would kind of discuss it and have staff bring forward any recommendations that they may need.
Okay.
And then on September, I think it's 16th, the next meeting, we would actually come together and then make a formal legislative priority list and get
Okay.
it out. I will grab the Florida School Board Association legislative, if there is one. Katie sits on the advocacy committee right now. They may have some ideas. The big thing that I'm going to focus on myself this year is going to be dereg, because I know from my perspective and what I went through and what the regulations and some of the paperwork that we have is out of control. So that's where I'm going to focus mine. But I think if you guys can bring back some ideas
Okay.
at the next session, talk to your friends, do that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Is that okay, Mr. Trent? And then, Mr. Rendell, I think one of the things that I was looking at was, we kind of bounced around with those contract renewals coming back before the board. And I don't feel like we had a strong enough discussion over that. So what we had mentioned before was if a contract has a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions, those 2 one-year extensions routinely have not been coming before the board. So they just continue those contracts. I feel that we, as a school board, should see that, right? But I don't know if I had that authority given to tell the superintendent. Is that, you know what I mean? So that, along with the direction from the $50,000 that the superintendent and others, deputy superintendents and stuff like that, or assistant superintendent may spend money on, should just come before as an informational item on the board so that we can keep an eye on it. That's all.
Informational items,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think you should set a minimum amount, because Dr. Rendell doesn't need to come and tell us every.
$300 in these
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's a huge gap from 0 to 50,000. So I feel like there should probably be, hey, if there's something that you have, if he's stroking checks for $45,000 over and over again, I know we don't do checks. I'm just
I don't,
kidding, but-
and I don't think, like Mullins would always say that he never did it. The thing is, Dr. Rendell had mentioned he had something in Indian River County that he did.
What was the policy there? Can I ask that?
Every quarter, we just had an addendum, an agenda item that listed anything that was purchased or contracts that were executed under the superintendent's spending authority.
Okay,
And keep in mind, again, that's the superintendent's spending authority. It's not like the superintendent has like a fund,
right.
but it's, contracts or anything that's budgeted for, but under $50,000, we don't have to bring to the board for approval. But every quarter, there was just like a list of those so that the public could see that, the board members could see that. We could look at trying to put that together.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Honestly, I think it just creates transparency too.
Yeah, I
so.
mean, it's a bigger district, so it's a bigger lift,
Okay.
but it was something we did there and, like you said, provided a little transparency.
Yeah, and a quarterly basis, I feel comfortable with that. I think that's
Yeah.
good, because again, with it being a bigger district, I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of work that goes
Right.
into that.
Yeah. And then also not only the superintendent, but doesn't the cabinet have up to a certain amount that they can authorize without having it come before the board?
Those would still all fall under that same list.
Okay.
They would.
That,
Yeah.
I would say board, superintendent and cabinet.
When you say
Make it-
superintendent's authority, it's superintendent or designee, so
Okay,
Okay,
anything under 50 grand coming
Okay.
out of ESF
okay.
would be on that list.
got it. Okay.
Okay.
And then as far as, I think I had spoken to Ms. Rodriguez about the contract piece, but I'm not sure if I had the board's authority. Paul, if I would like to move on having those contracts that are the contract renewals on the 1-year extensions come before the board for approval, is that something that I have to do at a board meeting to set that direction? We're not really voting on anything. Or could I get that here, or do I need to wait
What do you mean for renewals?
I would like to make a recommendation so that the contract renewals that in the past have not been coming before us for the contract, have the 3-year, 1 year, and 1 year contract extensions.
Right.
I'd like to have those contract extensions come before the board. So I was going to make that recommendation, but Ms. Campbell and Ms. Jenkins are not here, so would it be appropriate to just make that recommendation and see what Ms. Rodriguez brings back? Or do you want me to bring it back at the next school board meeting to get recommendation from the whole board?
I mean, either way would be fine. I'm just trying to think through, probably have to review the contracts to see what the language is in them, because it might require an addendum if it's overly specific.
I think we as a school, so like, say, contract for services X has a 3-year and a 1 year and a 1 year. What was happening is you had the 3-year, and then it never came back before the board, and there were some that had just continued to go, right, on 1-year extensions, and they never came back for procurement. And we didn't know about it because it was just being extended. So the idea would be that if we knew about it coming back, along with our annual review that we have on some of those that we're looking at, I think it could be part of the package. But I didn't want to do it unless, we have a majority here, but I didn't want to say that unless
Yeah, you can,
give direction during a workshop that we don't normally vote on things, you know what I mean?
right, yeah, I don't know that it requires a vote
Okay.
to just ask, the superintendent to make sure those come back before the board.
I think it'd be part of the policy.
I don't hate that. I don't dislike it. And I think, honestly, when we look at doing the annual review of these contracts, some of them I know, this will be caught on that end as well.
Yep.
So, I don't think it's a bad idea, honestly.
And I'm not talking about the, $10,000 custodian.
Right. You're talking, yeah.
There would be a limit, but, okay. All right, thank you.
All right?
Does anybody else have anything else to say? Dr. Rendell, you got anything?
I do. I need board direction on a couple things. We're not voting, but kind of need some board direction. So there is a hurricane out in the Gulf. Right now, we do not plan on closing school tomorrow. We'll make a final decision this afternoon, but the last storm tracks that we saw, it looked like we're far enough away that we won't have any dangerous winds or anything like that. But I do kind of need board direction. If we were to close school, I need some kind of direction on makeup date possibilities. The board may be aware that the first listed makeup days on our calendar occur during the Thanksgiving holiday. So if we were out any extended period of time, even one day really, we would probably have to make up that day. And so I kind of need some board direction on whether you would want us to just go ahead and take those Thanksgiving days or stay away from those Thanksgiving days and come up with other options for making up the day. Because I kind of want some direction from the board so that if we were to close, either for this hurricane or another one, whether we just say, hey, we've got these on the calendar, they're makeup days, it's listed on the calendar, we'll go with those. Or if you'd rather us look at a different option like we did exercise last year, pushing into second semester or removing some early release days or things like that.
So can I ask a quick question just before we speak to that? I think the trigger is that we can't cross the causeways if the wind gets above a certain amount, right? What was that?
Correct. It's sustained winds of 35 miles an hour.
Okay. And so what would happen if we today said we do not want to close schools, right? And then tomorrow morning, those sustained winds pick up, we would just make an announcement immediately?
Yeah, we would have to make the decision this afternoon.
Right.
We can't wait till tomorrow.
I understand that. And then, just so you guys know, what we did before is you try to catch it like when they come back. So you extend the semester into past Christmas, and then they say, okay, there's the games that they play. Plus, there were some years where we actually had more minutes, and we were able to reduce it that way too. Is there an option that in the event that we were able to reduce, that's through contract. I was going to say, you could also reduce the amount of early release Fridays. To get
Correct. So in simple terms, the easiest solution to make up days to use the days identified in the calendar. The calendar's already been voted on and approved by the board. Those are days, like say, for example, if you close school, your bus drivers don't drive and those types of things. So if, we typically pay our employees even when we close for a hurricane, even if they are hourly and they don't work. But then if you come back and do a makeup day that's an additional day, then you pay them again. So you pay them twice, which is fine. We do that. We have a budget for that. The biggest thing to consider with the makeup, any kind of makeup day policy is everybody always thinks it's about days. We have 180 school days, and so we have to have 180 days. And it's not days at all, it's instructional minutes.
Yep.
And we're in a kind of a bind more so than some other districts because our instructional minutes are limited. And we have those early release days every Friday. So that's 75 minutes of instructional time that we lose every Friday that other districts don't. So oftentimes when we're calculating whether we even need to make up a lost day for a hurricane, it comes down to the minutes. And seriously, the minute. It comes down to the calculation of a minute and instructional time. So, we're in a delicate situation where if we miss too many days, we can't absorb those days, because we don't have the instructional minutes to meet statutory requirement to issue credit. And so, more than likely, for example, O'Galley High School already had to close one day, the opening day. So calculating their instructional minutes, it's pretty tight right now for them to meet the instructional minute requirements for first semester. So again, if we were to close for a hurricane, we definitely would probably have to make up the day. We definitely would have to make up the day, especially for O'Galley. So we can't really absorb a hurricane makeup day in our calendar. Some other districts, for example, I believe last year Indian River was out for several days and they did not have to make up any hurricane days because they had enough minutes in their instructional calendar still in their days of school. We don't really have that option because we are so tight on instructional minutes. So all I'm asking for today is kind of direction from the board to, if we do close for a hurricane or any other natural disaster, do we just pluck the days right out of Thanksgiving because those are the ones on the calendar? Or do we look at, can we extend first semester like into second semester for a day, steal some of that time from second semester? Do we look at eliminating some early release days that would be negotiated with the union, that kind of thing, which we did last year, that kind of thing. So just kind of direction from the board. If we were to close, is it, hey, just take those days on the calendar, or be creative and start looking at other ways to make up the minutes?
So I'm just checking, I apologize, but I was just checking the national weather forecast for the hurricane, and it's showing that Wednesday 2 a.m. is the line where we would see a little bit, and then it's Wednesday 8 a.m. It'll be almost centered out over Florida. So I'm okay. First off, I think we need to make a decision on giving direction as to whether we're going to try to stay open or not.
I don't think we get to decide that.
No,
I
we
think-
just give him, you asked for direction?
No,
Not on
that.
whether to stay open
No,
or not.
Yeah, we don't get to decide that. We're giving direction on where if we should close, where is he pulling those
Oh,
days from?
you don't want us to give you any, okay, all right.
I'll take all the input I can get.
I would push, my recommendation would be to hold Thanksgiving harmless and to push into the next area. You can play around a lot there.
Yeah, my recommendation would be the same. Be creative. I hate that we are so tied with the minutes. So if there's anything we can do there on talking, I know that part of that is negotiating we have to do. So be creative. But yeah, I would protect Thanksgiving. That's a really great time for a lot of families. And I know a lot of our students are absent that time anyway. So this.
Yeah, I think oftentimes if you do have to schedule makeup days, that in all likelihood, if you schedule them on a holiday, even a Monday holiday, or not a Monday holiday, but a Monday teacher work day or something where students weren't planning on being there, you don't have strong attendance on those days.
Right.
So you're always looking for sound instructional days. And that's the thing, not to belabor the point, but if we did not have early release days every Friday, we would not really be worried about makeup days right now for one day of a hurricane, because we would easily have the instructional minutes available to make up that time. So, because of the minutes that we lose every Friday, that's why we're in kind of a bind.
Yeah.
And so, we'll sit down and look at the math and see where we would, if we
Yeah.
need to push into second semester or not. And if we don't close, then we don't have to worry about it. But I just wanted to make sure, you know, what the direction of the board was to protect Thanksgiving. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
And you guys, I guess you don't want us to give you any direction.
He
on the
wanted to
thing,
make a
'cause
decision today,
I
are
was
we?
like, I'll tell you, I enjoy the kids staying in school. But you have to make a tough decision, so you make that and I'll support you in any way you do.
Well, we should make that decision early this afternoon.
Yep.
All right. So
All right, you guys good?
I think we're good.
Oh,
Do you have
Gene has something to
direction?
say. He turned on his
No, I
mic.
turned it off.
Oh, I
turned
thought
it-
you, because you
Did you
got
have it on?
positioned, you were like,
Yeah.
he got up there, he was like, put
I
his
said, "You
hands
three."
together. I thought, man, here we go.
That's all I have.
Go ahead, Ms. Wright.
No, I don't have anything else.
Dr. Rendon, thank you so much. Mr. Paul, thank you so much for stuff. Thank you, staff, for everything. I think we're good. With that, adjourn the meeting. All right.